Good evening. Welcome to the 2021 Financial Town Meeting. If you're not already seated, we invite you to find a seat so we can get our meeting underway. I apologize for the late start, but we did have some residents who were trying to get in, and I'm sure you would like to have them here to hear as much of the discussion as possible. Before we begin with our business meeting, I want to just remind you we have some emergency exits in this room. The two doors in the back of the auditorium, one of which you came through, as well as two doors on either side of the stage. And there are restrooms available down the hall toward the cafeteria, and also there are some restrooms over in this corridor to my right. So if you need to use those, feel free, and we'll see you back in here when you're done. So first of all, I'd like to thank a whole bunch of people, which I'll get to in detail in a moment, but we had the checkers at the front door checking us in, following certain protocols, of course, some of which were determined by COVID-19 pandemic. And we do have over 200 people here tonight, so we have a quorum and then some, and I appreciate your interest in our town's finances by being here tonight. First off, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is over here to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard Staples, and you elected me as your new town moderator in last November's election. And by Rhode Island law, I have sole authority to regulate Barrington's annual financial town meeting. The town meeting is your opportunity to ask questions of your elected and appointed officials and determine your tax dollars are being spent wisely. So the only topic for discussion this evening is the proposed 2021-22 Barrington budget. Tonight, thanks to the efforts of your Board of Canvassers, we are prepared to conduct voting both in the cafeteria and here in the auditorium. We do have some residents who have chosen to be in the cafeteria this evening for social distancing reasons. But if those in the cafeteria wish to make a motion or to comment on a motion, we do ask that they come to the auditorium. The door closest to the front entrance in the back is the place to come, and our sound engineers will have a mic there right at the doorway for you to use, those of you in the cafeteria. When you registered this evening, you were given a sheet of numbers as well as a copy of the 2021-22 proposed Barrington budget. The numbers are for in case we do paper ballots during the evening, and we'll explain that to you as if it's needed. It is also proof that you are registered Barrington voters, so please hold on to those and have them available for the tellers when you vote. The number will be given to you that you need to show them. And at the conclusion of the meeting, especially for those at the high school who need to clean up after us, we would appreciate it if you would dispose of all trash and any plastic and other recycling items in the recycle bins or garbage bags in the back. To my left here is Meredith DeSisto, who were in her role as Barrington Town Clerk. Among many other things she does in her job, she will keep the official record of the meeting. We have two microphones here in the aisles for your use in asking questions, making motions, and debating motions. But we do ask, if you do, please tell us your name and address for the record before beginning your remarks. And if you are prepared to make a motion, we would appreciate having a written copy to help ensure that your motion is recorded correctly, especially if there is a motion that is long or complicated. And tonight we are limiting comment to Barrington residents only. During voting, everyone in the auditorium and those of you in the cafeteria will remain seated except when a standing vote is called for. And the order goes like this. The first thing I will do when we get to voting is ask for a voice vote. Many of our more routine resolutions pass very easily on a voice vote. If those results are not clear, I will then call for those in favor to stand, followed by those opposed, and we'll do an eyeball count. If that's not obvious, then we will assign tellers who will move through the auditorium and in the cafeteria to determine standing folks first for affirmative and then in the negative. And that could take 20 to 30 minutes to complete, so your patience may need to be indulged for that. And as I mentioned earlier, we all are also prepared to cast paper ballots. We have voting machines down here in the front, and also this year one in the cafeteria as well. And you would present that number that we ask you to present, get a ballot, go to the privacy booth, fill out your ballot, and drop it in the machine. And we'll go into more detail with that. Just to let you know, however, that if we do a paper ballot, it could take up to an hour to do that. So this is an open meeting. It's open to anyone to attend, but only registered voters can comment and vote. There is a section in front to my left reserved for non-voting guests, including any non-resident department heads, although there are some also seated over here, so they're immediately available to management should they be needed. We also may have students and members of the press, and we welcome you all. Fully functioning technology is an important part of the financial town meeting, and I would like to thank Mike Davis and Scott Morpeth for being here and providing a live feed for i3 broadband cable television, and to Nahum Bitnick, who is again managing the sound system with the help of Barrington High School students Jack and Alexandra. And former moderator Julia Califano is there. Would you stand, Julia, wherever you are? I would like to personally thank Julia for serving as Barrington Town Moderator for the past lucky 13 years with distinction, and to thank her for the helpful guidance she has given to me as I take on this responsibility tonight. Hers, goes without saying, will be a tough act to follow, but I intend to do my best. Also, we are fortunate that the COVID-19 pandemic is largely behind us, to the point that we are once again able to meet indoors, and that deserves a round of applause right there in front of you. However, lingering concerns about personal safety and compliance with state regulations required some adjustments to our typical meeting protocols, so I'd like to offer special thanks to members of the school department, especially George Finn, who led the team making this evening possible, the town clerk's office, Clerk Meredith DeSisto and her staff, Stephanie Bernardo, Michelle Cross, and Lisa Diaz, and the Board of Canvassers, Chair Claire Boyes, Shirley Applegate Lockridge, Sarah O'Brien, Dan O'Mahony, and Martha Wallach. There were a lot of Zoom conversations before things started opening up where we were having conversations about just what were we going to do this year, when we were going to have it, where we were going to have it, and I'm happy that we reconciled to that. And I would say Barrington resident Phil Chan from the Department of Health was a tremendous resource to the Board of Canvassers in explaining what the rules were, so I thank him for that. And if you wouldn't mind, let's just do a quick round of applause for everybody for that. Oh, now town and school officials. We have many elected and appointed officials here tonight. Over here on my right is Mike Carroll, who is chair of the Barrington Town Council, and please introduce your other council members here tonight, Mike. Thank you.
To my far right, we have Kathy Raposa, who is our Business and Finance Director for the town of Barrington. Jim Cunha, our town manager. Mike Ursillo, our town solicitor, is to my immediate right. My immediate left is Rob Hum, Vice President of the Town Council, Councilor Annalise Conway, Councilor Carl Costell, and Councilor Breyer unfortunately could not be here tonight because of a family tragedy.
Thank you, Mike. Over on my left, somewhere down the row here, is Gina Bay, the chair of the school board. And if you wouldn't mind, Gina, make the introductions on your side of the...
Thank you, moderator. To my far left, we have the Director of Administration and Finance, Doug Fiore. To my immediate left is Superintendent of Schools, Michael Mastori. To my right is Vice Chair, Dr. Megan Douglas. To her right is Mr. Patrick McCran. To his right is Erica Sevison, and to her right is Amanda Bass.
And we'll get to this last bunch of people in a few minutes. Also, the Board of Canvassers, as I mentioned, is here tonight to help with voting, and Pam Loria and Jeff Grove down here in the front, representing the Barrington Democratic and Republican Town Committees, will serve as our timers, which includes this wonderful stoplight here right in front of me. And speaking of that, everyone who wishes to speak will have 3 minutes to speak, ask a question, to make a motion, or speak to a motion. Our timer, Sarah O'Brien, down here in the front, is manning the timer stoplight, which turns red when your 3 minutes are up, and it makes a noise. So there are a couple of ways to remind you that your 3 minutes are up. And please, all questions and motions should be directed to me in my role as moderator. The rules for tonight's meeting are established by Rhode Island law, our Barrington Town Charter, and this little red book called Town Meeting Time, which is really quite a fascinating read despite the fact that it's about town meetings, because there's quite a history of it here in New England. Rhode Island law and these rules do not allow any motions to limit or shut off debate or for reconsideration of a budget line item once it has been approved. In addition, this meeting cannot be dissolved until a budget is approved, the tax rate set, and next year's Committee on Appropriations elected. And it's to that last point that I'd like to say we do need to maintain our quorum of 100 people to conduct business, 100 voters, and the appropriations, that includes the appropriations vote at the end of the evening. So we would appreciate it if you would stay, if at all possible, until the meeting is officially dissolved. If you wish to be recognized, raise your hand, although it's pretty hard for me to see you all out there because there's a big bright light shining on me and not much light on you. So I'm going to try to do my best to keep the meeting moving along, especially when we get to things like going through the account by account of the town operating budget. But if I do move too quickly, please just call out hold, and I will stop and return to whatever budget line item is of interest to you. And of course, you can then go to the mic and say what you wanted to say. For those of you in the cafeteria who are wishing to speak, as I said earlier, you need to come to the auditorium to do that, and I would just encourage you to try to come early in the discussion on a topic that is either upcoming, so that when you get here, the coordination of your comments and the item on the agenda at that time are the same. Again, please state your name and address before asking your question, and in order to allow as many questions and as much discussion as possible, I ask that the audience please forego applause. I know that gets said every year and it never holds, but if you can sort of try to sit on your hands a little bit, we can move a little quicker. So now we get to the meat and potatoes of the meeting, the agenda, which you all have in your packet that was handed out to you at the beginning. This includes the reading of the call or the warrant, which was published and posted in advance of the meeting. The call is printed, and it's before you on page 2. I would entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the call. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's a great example of how a voice vote works. And I assume we have a similar outcome in the cafeteria. So the budget you have in front of you this evening is the budget as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations after a long and very detailed process which started back around the first of the year. Steve Frimiano is the chair of that committee, but Steve got stranded, thanks to Southwest Airlines, somewhere quite a bit west of here. So we are going to ask Dr. Lisa Daft to please present the committee's recommendations for fiscal year 21 and 22. And before you do, Dr. Daft, if you'd introduce the other committee members here, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. I'm Lisa Daft, chairwoman of the COA. To my left is Cynthia Rosengard. To her left is John Alessandro, and to his left is Bill DeWitt. Your Committee on Appropriations welcomes you to the 2021 Town of Barrington Financial Town Meeting. We have been working diligently on your behalf over the past several months to receive and review the municipal and school budgets you will be voting on tonight. Unlike many Rhode Island communities, Barrington's town charter offers you the opportunity and responsibility to speak and then vote on how your town allocates and spends its revenue from property taxes and other sources each fiscal year. The role of the COA is in the town charter and is printed in the handout. The 2021-22 budget process began in the fall of 2020 with the Budget Forecast Committee meeting to update the budget forecast document. This valuable document projects spending and revenues over several years based on both known amounts and assumptions. It is not intended to predict the actual budget as priorities and circumstances change. It does provide a baseline to aid the administrations and the COA in crafting budgets. The committee is composed of 2 members of the Town Council, School Committee, and COA, and advised by the municipal and school finance directors. The final forecast document was presented by the Budget Forecast Committee and discussed at a joint meeting of the Town Council, School Committee, and COA on January 26, 2021. For this fiscal year, in anticipation of the budget hearing, the committee held 9 meetings to review the various proposed budgets in addition to the budget forecast presentation. One of those meetings focused on the status of our various pension plans. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, all meetings were held virtually on Zoom. The virus caused delay in scheduling the financial town meeting, resulting in an extended budget process again this year. The committee voted on and approved in a 3-2 vote a recommended 2021-22 budget on May 11th. One member voted no out of concern over the 4+ increase in both municipal and school operating budgets. Another voted no because the budget did not include the Town Council proposed addition of $500,000 to the capital budget to fund affordable housing initiatives. This is contrary to a letter that was published today in the Barrington Times. All meetings were publicized in advance and allowed for public comment. The process leading up to the Committee on Appropriations review of the 5 draft budgets, municipal operating, school operating, town capital, school capital, and debt service, began earlier this year when the Town Council, School Committee, and municipal and school leadership began working with their management teams to assemble their recommendations for the budgets being presented tonight. The capital budgets were developed and presented by the Planning Board based on input from the administrations. All budgets were compared to last year's approved numbers and multi-year expense history. The school department applied a zero-based budgeting strategy again this year and continues to fund implementation of their strategic plan. Finally, the draft budgets were reviewed and approved by the Town Council for the 3 municipal budgets and by the School Committee for the school operating and capital budgets before being presented to the Committee on Appropriations. Once received, the committee conducted its own review of the 5 draft budgets. Municipal and school administrators were present at our meetings and remained involved throughout the process. They answered our many questions and explained their methods of setting budget needs, priorities, and initiatives with the community and taxpayers in mind. They also informed us of efficiencies and reductions in their budgets and were challenged to defend their spending plans. The top 7 committee findings from our review process are: compensation costs within the 2 operating budgets continue to account for large portions of the budget and spending increases. New initiatives and reallocation of how services are provided are included in the school and municipal budgets. Town and school pensions are in compliance with all required contributions in accordance with state schedules, and we will continue annual monitoring. Maintaining excellent bond agency ratings requires balanced budgets and robust reserves. Consistent funding for future capital needs has kept borrowing and related expenses to a minimum, and some school capital expenditures receive 35% matching funds from the Rhode Island Department of Education. Awards of grant dollars and thousands of volunteer hours help mitigate costs and enhance the quality of life for Barrington residents. A significant increase in the municipal and school operating budgets was largely offset by revenue increases from the state in car tax reimbursement and the school funding formula of over $2.8 million, lessening the impact of the increased spending on the tax levy. The fiscal year 2021-22 Town of Barrington budgets, as recommended by the Committee on Appropriations and published in the Barrington Times on May 26, 2021, total $82,931,521, a decrease of 0.05% compared to last year. This total is distributed across 5 major budget categories referenced below. The first 2 categories, municipal operating and school operating budgets, represent 91% of the total budget and have recommended increases of 4.51% and 4.28% compared to fiscal year 2020-21. The combined increases of both operating budgets is 4.34%. The last 3 categories, municipal capital, school capital, and debt service, represent the remaining 9% of the total budget and have a combined decrease of 29.7% compared to the prior fiscal year. The large decrease in debt was due to a one-time middle school bond principal payment in the last fiscal year, which was offset by a one-time increase in state aid. The municipal operating budget as presented to the committee was $18,614,050, a 4.3% increase compared to fiscal year 2021. Town Council modifications increased the request to $18,636,550, a 4.51% increase. Notable budget increases were employee benefits, $265,000, a 5.8% increase, Public Works, $220,234, an 8.8% increase, which included a request for 2 new DPW positions. Debt decreased by $3,136,769, 35.08%. Most of that decrease was related to the previously mentioned one-time middle school bond principal payment from last year. The COA recommends a municipal operating budget of $18,636,550, an increase of 4.51% over the 2020-21 budget. The school operating budget, as presented to the committee, was $57,130,483, a 4.9% increase compared to last year. Notable department budget increases were contractual compensation and new positions, including benefits, of $2,545,475, a 5.61% increase. Subsequent modifications to the budget reduced the request to $56,790,991, a 4.28% increase. The COA recommends a school operating budget of $56,790,991, an increase of 4.28% over last year. The municipal capital budget recommended by the Planning Board was for $1,285,000, a decrease of 4.76% from last year. The changes requested by the town manager and town council increased the request to $1,810,000, a 34.15% increase. Primary drivers of the increase were $500,000 to fund affordable housing initiatives requested by the town council and $25,000 for a well at the town hall requested by the town manager. The $500,000 for affordable housing was not included in the COA recommended budget of $1,310,000, a 2.91% decrease from fiscal year 2021. The school capital budget request was $388,595, the same as fiscal year 2021. Included in the request are school technology, wireless access point replacement, and vehicle replacement. The COA recommends approval of the requested amount of $388,595, the same as last year. The debt service budget request was $5,805,385, a decrease of 35.08%. The large decrease is primarily due to a large one-time bond principal payment during the prior fiscal year, as previously stated. In addition, retirement of a building and recreation bond with an annual payment of $315,000 contributed to the decrease. The COA recommends approval of $5,805,385 for debt service, a decrease from fiscal year 2021 of 35.08%. The summary below is a visual of what was just presented. It has the increase of the operating expenses for the town of 4.34% and shows the decrease in capital and debt service of 29.73% and an overall decrease of 0.05%. The following graph is projected revenues, and most notable is the increase in school revenue to 10.1%, and most notable is that our 77.3% comes directly from property tax collections to fund our budget. The recommended total town budget was voted on by the Committee on Appropriations on May 11th, 2021, and amended on May 18th, 2021. The Town of Barrington's Notice of Proposed Property Tax Rate Change that was approved by the state, along with a report to taxpayers on the current and proposed budgets, was published on May 26, 2021. It is estimated to result in a proposed fiscal year 2021-22 tax levy increase of 0.31%, exclusive of motor vehicle excise tax collections as required by state law. However, the adjusted decrease would be 0.61% when budgeted revenues from motor vehicle tax collections are included. The final tax levy and related property tax rate for the fiscal year 21-22 will be determined by the result of votes taken at tonight's financial town meeting. Furthermore, each individual property owner's actual property tax increase or decrease may be further impacted by changes in assessed value of the owner's property during the past year, such as exemptions and reevaluation. I thank you all for being here tonight, and on behalf of the COA, I would like to extend a special recognition to our town administrators, Jim Cunha, Kathy Raposa, Mike Masori, Doug Fiore, Patrick Gutlein, and Meredith DeSisto for all the extra time they spent the last 2 extended budget seasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Having served on the COA, I know it's important work, and I applaud you all for getting through it again this year in good shape. Thanks a lot. Before we address the budget, as we do every year, we have some upfront resolutions to consider. They're printed in your call on pages 6, 7, and 8. 2 of those resolutions create new capital reserve accounts. Since the financial town meeting can only appropriate money for a single budget year, these capital reserve accounts, as mentioned by Lisa, allow the town to set aside money each year over a period of several years for major purchases like fire trucks, police cars, roof repairs, and to acquire assets such as land for conservation and other purposes. And I think it's very important to point out and add without having to go into the bond market. So there are really 2 ways to finance these purchases. One is to either save up, kind of like a Christmas club account, and the other is to go to the piggy bank and go to the bank and take out a loan. So the reserve accounts really have allowed the town to avoid, and the school department for that matter, to avoid bonding in many situations because we saved up for purchases we knew were going to be coming eventually. And in fact, the first resolution tonight is a good example of that. It's a resolution to create a capital reserve account for the Department of Public Works for exterior painting, and Town Council President Mike Carroll will move the resolution.
I make a motion that the financial town meeting create a capital reserve account for the Department of Public Works for exterior painting.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Is there a second to that motion? I hear a second. The floor is open for any discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify aye. Aye. Any opposed? Another great example of the voice vote in action. Thank you. The second is a resolution to appropriate $3,500,000 to fund the acquisition and preservation of the former Carmelite monastery and the financing of that purchase through the issuance of general obligation bonds and or notes in an amount not to exceed $3,500,000. And again, Council President Mike Carroll will move this resolution.
I make a motion that the financial town meeting appropriate $3.5 million to fund the acquisition and preservation of the former Carmelite monastery and the financing thereof through the issuance of general obligation bonds and or notes in an amount not to exceed $3.5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do we have a second for that motion? Your second? Discussion on the motion? Mr. Grove.
Great. Thank you. Jeff Grove, 16 Robbins Drive. This is the first that many people have seen of this resolution and this request. Beforehand, there was a motion for $250,000 that most people were familiar with, so this is a surprise to many people. I was in communication with Steve Primiano, the chairman of the COA, while he's traveling today, and I asked him if it would be all right if I communicated his comments, and he said yes. So let me just tell you that what he said is that allowing the town to purchase the property without a better idea of use is premature. It may be a good idea, but so might several multi-million-dollar homes paying full taxes. Voters need time to weigh options. Although there would be a cost, this could be decided at a special meeting when more info is available. Since this was, most people have not had enough time to process this, nor has a plan for this been presented to the townspeople. I think it's premature to vote on this at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grove. Okay, Mr. Carroll, would you like to respond to that
I
point
would.
made by Mr.
I
Grove?
would.
Thank you.
That's a fair point that you're first hearing about this. So let me give you as much information as we have. About a month ago, we found out that the Carmelite Monastery was going to go up for sale. People had heard earlier in the year that the Carmelite nuns were leaving, but we didn't know it was up for sale. Maybe a little over 3 weeks ago, we found out there would be accepting bids on that. About a little over maybe 2 weeks ago, we held a meeting. No, it was about 3 weeks ago, we held a meeting. We held that meeting in executive session. Why would we do that? Well, for a few reasons. One, when we decide to bid on a piece of property, we don't want to tell everybody else what we're willing to pay. Open Meetings Act, in a lot of cases, requires us to discuss our business in public, and that's fine, except if you're negotiating, you don't want to say, well, we're going to offer this, but we'll go as high as that, because the seller will take the highest possible bid. We also didn't want to disclose what we were going to bid for the property, because then the next available person could come along and say $3.5 million and $1 and beat our bid. So there are a lot of reasons not to do that, including we don't necessarily want others to know that there is interest in the property from the town. So the important thing to note is that we didn't vote to buy this property. We can't do that. That's what you're going to do tonight. We voted to give you the chance to buy this property. And what do we suggest that it's for? We have a desperate need in this town for senior housing. We've been looking at the Zion property for a long time, hoping that we could put senior housing there. We want our seniors not to move out of town when they decide to downsize. This is a fantastic opportunity to have senior housing. The parking lot's already there, the building is there, we need a lot of work. But this is a great opportunity for us to have senior housing, and so we decided it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and so the town council unanimously voted to make a bid on this property. I can also tell you that the bid has been tentatively accepted for $3.5 million. So tonight, you will decide if we go forward.
I see someone over here to my left. Please.
So I did
You
owe
can
both.
take off your mask when you speak. So
Thank you. My name is Carla DiStefano, 23 Pine Avenue. I did owe both of the comments by the first speaker and by the chair of the town council. I would just like to say that it would have been nice to see in this information that there was a proposed use, and if it is senior housing, I'd like to add that it be senior housing that also include affordable senior housing as part of it. So I'm reluctant to vote for just an open purchase without the use being part of it, and maybe some of the town residents sort of agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DiStefano. Hand up. Did I see a hand up here on the dais?
I guess I'm confused. In the resolution, it talks about preserving the monastery. So is it to preserve the monastery or is it to develop the monastery? Sitting here on the Committee on Appropriations, process matters. And so does trust. Now, throughout the process, through meetings in the fall, through meetings in the winter, meetings in the spring, there was no discussion of the town wanting to buy property to develop. In fact, what they said was, given the fact that the payments were going down, this would be a great idea that we should perhaps fund the $500,000 as a test. Okay? Throughout the spring, they kept saying, let's do $500,000 as a test because this is the year because the payments are going down. And then, surprise, we're hit with a request for $3.5 million. The process ends tonight, but the trust that I have with our town council, or the lack thereof, will endure. We need to be forthright for this process to work. We need people to be honest and transparent, and that did not happen. And you deserve that. You deserve that, and you didn't get it. So now you're going to be forced to make a decision without a real sense of where your dollars are going to go. And if we really want to keep seniors in town, let's stop raising their taxes and let them enjoy the homes that they raise their kids in.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I want to respond to that. I would have disclosed this earlier, but it wasn't available earlier. We didn't know about it in the winter. We didn't know about it in the fall. So the COA would never have found out about this because we're not clairvoyant. We didn't know that this property was going up for sale. I don't think that there's any reason to make those kinds of allegations. But putting that aside, let's be clear about this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that came up about a month ago. You can decide that you want to take a pass on it. If you do, you're giving up the opportunity to have senior housing. Now, how is that property going to be developed? We're not going to raise the building. We're not going to knock it down. It's going to need a lot of work inside. It's already got a parking lot. It's already got a structure. We can work with that. But I'll tell you specifically that whatever we do with the property, it will be through public hearings throughout the process. And so that's when you'll have your opportunity to talk about what will happen there. We found out about this about a month before you did, and we couldn't say anything because we didn't win the bid. But this is your opportunity to decide if we did a good thing and if we gave you the chance to buy this property. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Others wishing to speak?
I believe people don't understand that they can get in line at the microphone.
Oh, yes, you can get in line at the microphone if you wish to speak. Please, yes, you can come down. Just give everybody a little space, would be all we'd ask. Go ahead.
Can you? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Deborah Neiser. I live at 30 Adelaide Avenue. Nothing floored me more because I didn't know about this until Monday. I think my neighbors and I actually knocked on doors of people who abut the property, and they were shocked that they did not even know about this. I hope tonight you're here. Can I put this down so I can?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, is this senior housing? Is this affordable housing? The thing about this is I don't see a plan up here. All I see is nothing. I see a lot of talk. So if you think tonight, is this on?
Yes, oh yeah.
If you think tonight that you're here to vote for senior housing and you don't get it, you've kind of been lied to. If you're here tonight to vote that you think that it's going to be affordable housing and it doesn't and it becomes senior housing, then you've been lied to. Once you vote on something, it's going to become permanent. $3.5 million in an amendment that was given 5 days prior to this meeting is a horrible, horrible thing. In fact, what's interesting is that this wasn't even in last week's Barrington Times or yesterday's Barrington Times. So the poor people, and I have a feeling that if they had known about this, not only would this auditorium be overflowing, but I think the cafeteria, the hallways, etc., would be overflowing. You can't sit there and ask for people to fund something. You have absolutely no idea, no plan, no nothing, other than to say, well, you know, we want it. No impact of what the neighborhood would be, no impact of what the schools would be, nothing at all. Let a developer. I found it interesting that in Mr. Nisi's article today that was quoted with Mr. Kuna in there, was the fact that they're eyeing the property as a place to build new affordable or senior housing, whereas, he said, a private developer would likely use it to build 7 or 8 large beachfront type homes instead. What the hell's wrong with owning a home? I don't get this. You all live in homes that are values of $1 million or more. What is wrong with having a home and living in a neighborhood? When did that become a sin in this town? Enough is enough. please vote no. Thank you.
My name is Sam Chase, and I live on Nayet Road.
Your address, sir?
95.
Great, thank you.
First, I want to compliment the town on how well they notified town residents of the COVID problem and how you could get shots. If you could do that so well, why couldn't you notify the town about what you were going to discuss today? To Mr. Carroll, have you heard of an impact study? I'm sure you have. For those in the audience, an impact study is basically they look at what the program that is being offered, and they see how it'll affect the town, how it'll affect taxes, schooling, traffic, and all other aspects of the town. And that is usually done before anything is passed. If you had a month, Mr. Carroll, you certainly could have done an impact study on this, even for your own committee, if not for the town. Why you want to put affordable housing in one of the most expensive areas in town is beyond me. I think that this is poorly planned, and I'm ashamed that you came to the town to present it this way.
Slowing down the applause will speed the process up. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Christina Squattrito. I live at 25 Appian Way. Thank you to Bill for bringing that to our point. I thank all of you for being here and the things that you do for our town, but as a resident and of the town, I think it's extremely valuable to inform all of the residents of what's happening and the options that are in front of us. And having this immense opportunity handed to us on a last-minute basis is really uncalled for. And at $3.5 million, it's a large sum of money. And without a plan and without a goal, and to just ask us to vote yes and to trust that you're just going to do what's best for all of us is hard to trust. And I think knowing that there are other people out there that want to participate in the growth of this town, whether they personally purchase it and use it for access from the schools. Maybe somebody who wants to purchase it and keep it as open space. Maybe someone's willing to purchase it and keep it for the value of the nature. You don't know. You haven't explored those options. And I think the townspeople deserve the opportunity to know who else wants this property and what their goals are for it, other than you're willing to pay the asking price and just hope that we will trust that you make the right decision for us. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll?
Thank you. I should be clear that we weren't, as we're told, we weren't the only bidder on this property. By law, if whoever buys it decides to put more than 2 houses on this property, there will be affordable housing on the property. Not 100% affordable, but it's required that if they put more than 2 houses on this property, it would have to be, some portion of it would be affordable. Now, we've talked about senior housing. That's distinct from affordable housing. Some portion of it would be affordable housing, no doubt. But that doesn't mean 100% of it would be affordable. So we should be clear that this isn't a choice between leaving the property as it is and nobody touches it because the Carmelite nuns are gone. It's a question of whether we as a town control what gets developed on there or someone else does.
Took it down.
Go ahead, please.
My name is Beverly Migliori. I live at 51 Chesapeake Road for a very long time. And I was very familiar with a lot of the nuns that lived in the Carmelite monastery. And so was a lot of people in the neighborhood and the town. Everybody knew that the land was going to be for sale. In fact, it was listed on Zillow in early spring, I believe. And, well, knowing the property, it's not going to be $3.5 million. That's to buy the property. that piece of property is very, very run down. And so it may double, triple. So we're not just asking for 3.5. We're asking once we get involved in it, we're involved. I don't believe that that's the right space for, having senior or that type of thing. But I think it's most ingenuous for you to put preservation into the name of this, because that is by no means preservation. Removal, the best thing for that property would to be remove, the parking lot and all that. It's very out of place where it is now from an environmental standpoint. That's a subject to runoff and everything else to the bay. It's right on the water. I think the town could do very much better job putting affordable housing in another area of town. I live in an area of town that has some affordable housing now, and I don't believe that the affordable housing has to go on that same location. It just has to be built somewhere in town. So I think that, I would urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Over here. Sorry, that mic's kind of out of my field of vision. So that's where you go, hey, and I point over your way. Go ahead.
I'm Mark Hanchar from 25 Frederick Drive, Barrington. And I sat on appropriations much as you have. And I agree with you that there needs to be a process. And the process includes a financial plan. As this lady was just talking about, the exposure of the town is more than $3.5 million. There's environmental issues of asbestos and other things in that building that need to be addressed if we're going to take ownership of that building. And then you have the cost of getting it ready for sale or us being asked to fix it up ourselves. I would recommend that this resolution be withdrawn and that a financial plan come up with something for this property. If we lose the property, we lose the property, but we can control how it's developed through the normal process in Barrington. Thank you.
I'd like to have a quick point of order with Mr. Rosillo. I know it's my mic on. Mr. Hanchar? If you wish to do it, you may, in fact, make a motion to withdraw the motion. Okay. Never mind. I worded it poorly. But I'm new at this, so please forgive me. All right. But it's nice to see you up there again. Thank you. All right. Over to this side. Back on track here.
Good evening. My name is John Conti. I live at 2 Donald Ross Road. I'd just like to support those in opposition to this proposal for the reasons aforementioned stated, including environmental impact and also much likely overrun costs that will be necessitated by the condition of the property, and because there are always overruns in any project. I would like to see this perhaps devoted to open space, however that might come about in the future. But be that as may, I think it is it's interesting that kind of the council is prescient, maybe, and that they knew that this bid was going to be accepted. How did that happen? Was there negotiations happening before this proposal? So therefore, I am opposed to this. Thank you.
Mr. Keller, any response to that? Specifically to open space, if you would.
To open space. Certainly, it's theoretically possible that someone, some private bidder might spend $3.5 million to create a park. I think it's unlikely, and my guess is that most people who are bidding on it bid on it planning to develop the property in a way that's different than we're talking about, which could include some open space in addition to that building. Probably most people want to tear down that building. That's kind of what we heard from the real estate agent. we would prefer to keep it that way and renovate the interior.
Thank you. Okay, nobody on that side, so we'll go to you on this
Hi,
side.
my name is Chris Morton, 58 Boyce.
Drop your mask.
58 Boyce Ave.
Thank you.
Just want people to realize that if you vote no today, that the opportunity is more likely going to be lost for the town to buy the property and have an opportunity to develop it, and it will go to a private developer. I also hear people say a lot about that you've been lied to, and this didn't come up, from what I understand from what was said before, is that during real estate negotiations, it's not public, and the town did not know about the acceptance of the offer until recently, I assume. And so I think that all this talk about being lied to and stuff is a little ridiculous. Also looking at the budget, I see how little goes to our seniors in Barrington, and it concerns me that we are not putting seniors' welfare and their ability to stay in the town and so forth as important as we should. And I think that's something we really need to look at, is how we don't respect our seniors as much as we should. And if you look at the budget, we respect our students, which we should. And I think it's really important that we give a seniors opportunity to stay in Barrington. So thank you.
Thank you. I see you way over there.
Thank you. Good evening. Elizabeth Greaser, 42 Watson Avenue. And I think everyone in this room knows that I live right across the street from this proposed site. I would like to hear you clarify what preserve means when you put preserve, and that's what people think that they're voting for. Does that mean that it's going to stay beautiful green space and you're just going to renovate that building, or are you going to divvy up all the rest and make that into lots of little houses? What does that mean, preserve the monastery? I also would like to express my disappointment with whoever is responsible for disseminating this information, because I myself only heard about it within the last few days, and talking with my neighbors, none of them made the connection between town financial meeting is tonight and are we going to buy the monastery decision is tonight, which is why we only have 200 people here and not a higher percent of Barrington residents. Nobody knew that this was one and the same meeting. So I don't think that's a great dissemination of information. This seems like an 11th hour deal, trying to slide it in with as few people as knowing about it. And of course, it's given fodder to a great number of rumors, plans. Some sound great, some sound not so great. And the people who are talked into it are getting the great version. As a realist, I have to assume the worst case scenario when I hear anybody's plans, because nothing, like everyone has said, there is no actual plan being presented tonight, which means it could change 100 different ways before anything actually happens to that land. It's a lot of money. And so I just ask for some clarification on what does preserve mean when it's written in the handout tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
Preserve means that we don't intend to tear the building down to put up multiple McMansions. We want to keep it essentially as it has been for many years, that is, as senior housing. It will be a little bit more luxurious senior housing than the sisters were living in, because I'll tell you, having toured that building, they lived very simply. So it would be, people would not have to hang their clothes on the lines that were in the basement. They could use a dryer and that sort of thing. But we're looking at this for senior housing and preserving the structure, but obviously renovating the interior to make it more, so there isn't a group bathroom, for example, rather than individual bathrooms in individual apartments. As to the other questions about distrust, I can only tell you that we found out today that we have a tentative deal. We have to work out the language, but the dollar amount was accepted by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Providence. So tentatively we have a deal on that, but we only found that out today.
Thank you. Yes.
Ann Strong, 55 Teat Avenue. Referring back, as most of us have, to Bill's point of trust, which I think he made a very good point. My concern, since you have gone forward with negotiation with the Diocese of Providence, I am concerned what's going to happen if this is not approved. I'm assuming in executive session you've discussed taking that $3.5 million out of your $20 million surplus fund, and I'd like somebody to talk about that.
Mr. Carroll.
No, as the motion says, the motion really says that we're going to borrow it either through bonding or through borrowing. As a AAA-rated town, we get extraordinarily good rates, and that's a good way for us to do business. In terms of if this FTM doesn't approve it, it was contingent on that. We made it contingent on that, so they would have to go out to bid again if this FTM rejected this opportunity.
And it is my understanding, I know I have to address you, but my question is for Mr.
That's
Carroll, that Mr. Carroll has done legal work for the diocese in the past, and if that is true, which I believe it to be, I think he should recuse himself. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you. That's false.
Yes. Hello.
Tara, local builder. I live at 275 Nayet. My backyard is the monastery. I like the idea of developing the building for elderly housing.
You know, while you're... Okay. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Thank you.
That's good. All right, so I back up to the monastery, and I like the idea of developing the building, restoring the building as elderly housing. My worry is that the rest of the property could become cluster developments, and I like the way it is now. Of course I would, because of the trees and it's a beautiful scenery. I think if there was something in this that stated that the property would be restored and there wouldn't be building on the rest of it, I could see myself voting for it. It's just the fact that it's the big unknown is probably stopping a lot of people, because that monastery has been there for a long time. I don't think anyone rejects the idea of that. The other thing is it could be developed as open space. You could knock the building down, and that could be a beautiful place for the townspeople of Barrington to go and enjoy. It's near the water, and it's a great spot. So that's something, instead of restoring the building.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Carroll, any comment?
No. So, thank you. So the only opportunity to decide to take part in what will be developed there is if we own it. If somebody else owns it, then they have the power to decide what goes there. How will we decide what goes there? If this passes tonight, there'll be a lot of hearings on this. We'll be talking a lot about how we can do this, what the plans are, what we should do with it. Is it, how much is worth, and by the way, I should point out, we don't really want to be owners of the property ultimately. What we would intend to do, at least what we talked about doing, is we would work with developers to renovate that building for senior housing, and that property in some form using some open space so that it was an attractive place for seniors to go. But then we would sell the property contingent on the buyer developing it as we've described. So Would we get the 3.5 back? I don't know what the market's going to be like. I can't tell you that. But we would certainly try to get most of it back. And frankly, in this market, we didn't, I should speak for myself, I didn't think we had much of a chance. We thought we'd ask for asking price. Nothing's going for asking price. So we thought we'd been fortunate to be able to get it for this, and I don't think we're going to have much of a problem selling it even as we decide how it's developed.
Let's see. Mr. Bachura switched, so I think we'll go back over here. Thank you.
Stephen Venuti, 17 Stanhope Drive. I'm going to give voice to what seems to be a minority in this room, and that is that I am very much in favor of this. I spent a number of years working on the zoning board. I also spent part of that time working on a zoning update committee. Subcommittee was an ad hoc committee of people from planning and people from zoning. And the one thing we were looking at very closely was the need for not only affordable housing, but senior housing in the town. I know that my wife and I would very much like to stay in Barrington, but we look around and we don't see a whole lot of opportunities for seniors to stay in this town. Earlier, there was somebody who spoke about and asked the question, well, what's wrong with more housing? Well, we've got plenty of high-end housing in this town. What we don't have is plenty of housing for seniors. I want to applaud the town council for recognizing the timeliness of this and being quick and taking the action, because the housing market is such, and properties particularly in places like Barrington, they go quick. And a moment of hesitation and we would have lost this. I honestly believe that this is a golden opportunity, that there was simply no other choice if we are actually going to live up to our obligation to provide senior housing for those of us who want to stay in the town. This is it. Don't blow it down.
Thank you for yielding. Your turn now.
Hi, Tom Remishitis, 1 Howard Street. First of all, I'd like to thank the Committee on Appropriations for doing such a wonderful job over the last couple of years. You guys have really stuck it out. You looked out for the townspeople this year more than any. I really like to appreciate that for you guys. I also agree with Mr. DeWitt on the housing for the seniors. I know a lot of seniors that get some type of a break, but they have to go to the town hall and fight for that break. So I think we need to come up with a better system for our seniors and a more of an aggressive tax reduction for them. I don't believe this $3.5 million project would be anything except money, 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 money. So you're looking at $3.5 million to buy the property. If we're going to knock it down or whatever, rehab it, millions. You got to form a committee. You want to be in the building business now or the housing business. Now you need a maintenance team. Now you need a grounds team. Money, 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 money. We don't have money, 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 money. So at this point, I urge you to vote no. I would also like to find out what affordable housing is. If we take $1 million house and you reduce it by 20%, that's $800,000. Is that affordable? I know it's not for me, but is that how it works? Or is there a set value? Because I know North Kingstown or South Kingstown has a set value of affordable housing from like 140,000 to 365, give or take. So is that something that can be adjusted here and explained? You know, and then the other thing was in the paper or on the news, we went from senior housing to affordable housing. Is it one or the other? That's all I want to know.
Mr. Carroll?
It's both. It's not 100%. Well, the council hasn't voted on this, but there's no reason that it would have to be 100%. But there's every likelihood that there would be affordable housing, unless somebody if this FTM rejects this chance, then what will happen is somebody else will develop it. They could build one house on there, and if that's the case, there wouldn't have to be affordable housing. If they want to build more than two, there would be affordable housing. And to answer the one before, it's possible that they could find it somewhere else in town. We do allow someone to provide affordable housing somewhere else in town. And that's happened if they happen to own other property in town. That's theoretically possible. But to answer your other question, there's a formula that's done based on the area median income. And it's more complicated than I understand, but the short answer is that depending on your family size, a house of $400,000 might be affordable. I think it's a family of 6 or something that would be considered affordable. So two things would happen. It would be the size of the family, or I should say 3, size of the family's income, and the house itself would be limited to that dollar amount. It's more complicated than that because if we're selling condos, I don't know what the formula works out to for that.
So we have no set value for affordable housing?
No, there is. It adjusts every year based on the area median income and a number of other factors in there. So if you have a family of 7 or 6, I think, and I'm not sure I'm right on this, that the maximum housing price is about $400,000. If you have a smaller family, that maximum value goes down. And there are other ways of calculating it based on the number of bedrooms and things like that.
So in this proposal for the 3.5, was there any thought of how much it's going to cost us in the long run to get into the housing business?
If I
yes,
may
go
continue.
ahead.
That's my last question.
Okay.
Thank you.
You raised some very good points, and I certainly don't want to be in the housing business, but I would like to control what happens there. We have a choice about what's going to happen there tonight. We don't have a choice if somebody else owns the property. They can do what they want with their property within limits. We know that under state law, they would be able to, if they provided a certain minimum amount of affordable housing, they would be able to essentially ignore a lot of our zoning regs. We've seen that happen before. So state law would allow them to build a denser community if they wanted to, as long as some portion of it was affordable. It's our vision that this be senior housing. We want to preserve the building and make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
Hello, can you hear me? James Egan, 50 Watson Avenue. My question is about the only time the word preservation appears is in the title. I wondered if that had any binding effect. Maybe the town solicitor can answer that. And if that word has any legal definition. And then thirdly, if it's passed, if preservation does have any binding effect, whether anybody in the town has any recourse against the town if it's not preserved.
The term as explained here this evening is to not tear it down, to preserve the building. That's all it means. There's no special legal effect. It means if you approve this, the town or a subsequent developer would not be able to tear the building down and, in fact, would have to preserve the building. It doesn't mean that it can't be upgraded inside, changed, etc. But the building would have to stay in place. That's all.
You just said it has to stay in place. The building has to stay in place if the vote...
That's correct. The building would have to stay where it is.
And then the surrounding 5 acres or whatever it is, does that have to be preserved
No,
as
that is not included in this, not at all. It's just the building would have to remain.
Are there any zoning restrictions on what can be placed in the surrounding 5 acres or so? Right now, I think it's R40, is that the term? 40 acres, 40 square feet. Is that true?
I'm just being told by the town manager it's an R40 zone. I mean, there are zoning issues you have to comply with, but as Mr. Carroll mentioned, if there's a comprehensive permit, then those zoning regulations would be subject to whatever's in that comp permit. The comprehensive permit is the process whereby someone comes in, puts in affordable housing, they can increase the density. That's really what that's all about.
So you're saying then if the vote is yes, it's passed, and the town takes possession, and they don't preserve it, and we can fight about what that means, that the residents can sue the town for violating this resolution, or is that your understanding?
Yeah, if the town does not follow, if it does not do what the FTM mandates in a resolution, yes, someone can absolutely sue in Superior Court. That is correct.
Thank you.
Over to this side.
Laura Young, 14 Manor Road. I just wanted to say that I'm really pleased that we may have this opportunity if the town supports it. I'm an advocate for seniors in this town and have spoken to many of them. The need for senior housing is apparent and spoken about often. And although the tax exemption is an enormous help for people to be able to afford to stay in their homes, the homes themselves are not always the best situation as people get older and mobility needs change. When it comes to trust, I feel after our experience with Zion and our experience with Knockham Hill that I really trust the town to do a great job with this, and I'm appreciative. I hope that everyone will support it. Thank you.
Good. Over here.
Good evening. I'm here compelled because there was a gentleman earlier saying.
Can you just state your name and address?
Sorry, my name's Irene. I live at 18 Chachapacasset.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, as I was saying, there was a gentleman earlier who said, why do we need affordable housing? So, I will say it's not an abstract concept because it's for people like me. Because I live in an affordable house on 18 Chachapacasset. And I'm your new neighbor, so I just have to say I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I've had to live in this beautiful town. And sorry. My son just graduated from high school, and we have been given this amazing opportunity. And I just want to say and give a face to what affordable housing is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jamie Treebwasser, 139 Nayet Road. I want to thank the Committee on Appropriations and for all of you guys for what you do, but my thing is that there is a process and it has to be followed. We just found out about this yesterday and trying to spread the word around town. We all knew that the monastery was for sale long ago, more than a month ago. So I find that hard to believe that you guys just found out about it a few weeks ago. The other thing is that you don't have a plan. And you also are making it sound like the scare tactic that if we don't get it, it's going to be horrible. Somebody else might buy it and put up 7 houses or 5 houses. And okay, some might be affordable housing. That's great. Have a plan. The other thing is what is wrong with having 7 houses? The amount of taxes that get collected yearly, believe me, I know, is significant. And I think this town could use some more money. So that's another issue. And the other thing is you talk about preserving the building. I don't know if anybody has looked. I think a lot of people have because, you know, during COVID, everybody wanted to fix up their houses. The cost a cost of plywood, when I checked a little while ago, was $80 a sheet. It's gone way up higher than that. A 2x4 was, I don't know, $10, $12. It's crazy expensive right now. So 3.5 million, let's keep going, because it's gonna be snowballing, one after the other. And then the last thing, my last point is that you keep saying there's gonna be no control if somebody else buys it. Well, in this town, there are a lot of controls. There's a planning board, there is a building official, and there's a zoning board. You also have to answer to coastal resources. So you make it sound like there are no checks and balances in place, but there are. So I urge you to vote no.
Have you settled who's going to go now? Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, Kelvin Mazurski, 221 Promenade Street. I appreciate the effort on the council by taking the initiative to look at this property and see what's best for our community. I think affordable housing and senior housing would be ideal. Thank you.
Back over here, or are we? Oh, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay Talbot, and I live at 37 Fales Avenue. I'm not a building official. I don't have a lot of experience in real estate, but I can give some observations that I would just like to have noted. I live on Fales Avenue, which is, as you may know, a lot of small bungalows and cottages, which are quickly disappearing. My own house is 1,000 square feet, and in the past 5 years, 3 of the houses within 2 doors from me have doubled in size. There aren't many affordable housing opportunities available. There's no place for seniors, and as one of the previous speakers said, I do a lot of work in elderly housing as a public relations consultant, but I am aware of the fact that a lot of these houses aren't equipped for seniors. And we've all lived through COVID, and we know that a lot of people have seniors in their family, and we've seen the fact that isolation really hinders mental health in seniors. If we have elderly housing here in town that's very close together, the isolation that we saw during COVID doesn't have to happen. And socialization leads to better quality of life for seniors, and that's a proven fact. I'd like to thank Mr. Carroll for taking this opportunity, seizing it, and being opportunistic. I don't think that he thinks that this is the ideal situation, but he's trying to seize the opportunity and to do something right for Barrington. And finally, I'd like to say, don't let this be another POSOC situation where we lose an opportunity because we ponder it and we look at it too much and don't jump on the opportunity when it presents itself. Thank you.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, Joan Warren, 19 Adams Point Road. I'm just wondering about the preservation of the monastery building itself. What is so significant about this building that it needs to be preserved? Like what year was it built? What is the condition of the building? Other than its significance, its religious signification, you know, there's a chapel there. I don't see what it is about this building that is so important that it must be preserved.
Mr. Carroll?
Thank you. So it was built in 1957. Why is it important? Well, a lot of people who lived here their whole life have been used to the Carmelite Monastery. It's where I used to go, my mother used to go to get Mass cards from the Carmelite nuns. Lots of folks have gone there for just a quiet place to meditate. It's sort of part of our community. And so the idea of tearing it down for some of us doesn't sound like a great idea. Others may disagree, but and certainly what we've heard from the real estate agent is that other folks looking at it would want to tear it down.
Yes, I understand. I feel personally that if there was some historical significance, or if it was in an area of town that was more visible, a lot of people don't even know that the monastery exists, unfortunately, because it is a beautiful place, and my son was baptized there, so I have a very strong feeling about it myself, but I don't think that building, just because of our sentimental value, is a justification for preserving it. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Pamela Lauria, 56 Martin Avenue. I just wanted to make the point that we don't have senior housing in Barrington. We don't have nearly enough affordable housing in Barrington. And the opportunities to do this are very small. There are not big swaths of land that are going to come up for us to have an affordable housing complex anytime soon. Where are they? So I think that, and we all know that right now that housing and properties have been going crazy and fast, and the presumption that somehow somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes, I think is unfortunate. I think that there's a whole row of people, not just the COA or the town council or the school committee, that are up there to serve the town for the best of their abilities. Nobody's making any money doing it, or barely any money doing it. So they're trying to look out for the town. You can agree or not agree, but to accuse them of some malfeasance or dishonesty, I think, is unfair. You're probably going to hear me again when we actually talk about the $500,000, because I'm on the Barrington Housing Board, and I think strongly that we need to take our opportunities to do this. But for senior housing, there's nothing. There's nothing. And the opportunity to do this is significant, and I think it's a significant opportunity to lose. Thank you.
Go ahead, Julia, please.
Julia Califano, 151 Matheson Road. I couldn't waste this opportunity to speak up.
Are you speaking to me? This is a moment.
I think this is a beautiful piece of property and certainly a wonderful opportunity. But the reality is that we do have senior housing that was developed by private developers and by not-for-profit developers, and we do have affordable housing, also mostly developed by not-for-profits. And the town really doesn't have the experience or the expertise to go into this line of work. It's expensive. The Carmelite monastery is actually quite small. It wouldn't allow for very many apartments. And we have the example at the moment of the Zion Bible property, which has been sitting, and the town has tried desperately to find someone. And in fact, we've talked about elderly housing and affordable housing there, and it hasn't happened. And it hasn't happened because it isn't affordable. It isn't affordable for a private developer, and therefore it would be probably unaffordable for the town. And as tempting as this piece of property is, I think the town has to do more due diligence before we would go forward.
Thank you. Mr. DeWitt.
I just wanted, you all elect us to present you with a budget. And we can't present you with a budget if we don't have all the information. And whether it was 6 months ago, 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it would have been appropriate for the Committee on Appropriations to be communicated with so that we could understand the ramifications and so we could talk to the town council about it. We were not given that opportunity on your behalf to vet it. I'm not accusing them of any malfeasance, but there is a process, and process matters. And when you violate process, that breaks down trust, and that's too bad.
Yes.
Mary Alice Gasparo, 14 Robbins Drive. I know what it's like to sit at this table and get yelled at. My last town meeting in 2000, I was very glad it was my last town meeting. But as I look...
You're a legend.
Well, not really. As I look at the table, what I don't see is history, because we've been down this road over senior housing for years. I remember being at a meeting at the middle school maybe 40 years ago when Barrington College was looking to make some money and wanted to partner with Furland out of Pawtucket to build apartments on what is now Lionsgate and the property going down to Riverside. They were screamed out of town. Nobody wanted apartments. Then came Luke DiStefano, who bought the Lighthouse Point property off Washington Road, wanted to build high-end condos. And people yelled him out, and there's now million-dollar homes there. And most people are living over in Oyster Point, Baggy-Winkle, and North Farm, because we all don't want to stay here. Mr. DeWitt brought up the problems of old age, and I'm old now. I was 30 years old when I came to Barrington. That was 45 years ago. And maintaining a house the size that we have is tough. Getting people to do the work is tough. It's not always about affordability. I can afford the taxes. I'd rather spend the money on something else. But in the early 90s, this discussion came down the road again, and the town decided they didn't want to be in the business of maintaining elderly housing. And I was on the council when the Pilling Chain building opened. And I went with Sharon Brinkworth, who was the president at the time. I don't know how many units there were there, but it was affordable senior housing, 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. On the day we went in, it was only 1/4 full. No other applications, no waiting list. And it was for people over 55 with certain incomes. If you were over income, you paid a little higher rent. And it took them quite some time to fill up that building. And most of them weren't Barrington residents. So I don't know that I would support this because of the lack of information. It's a beautiful spot. It's very valuable. But I don't think you can do what needs to be done in a building that size without adding on and moving out into the lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Dr. Daft?
I'd just like to comment back with Bill that the COA had a meeting as recent as last week. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Michael Squattrito, 25 Appian Way. I have a couple of questions. Number one, do we have any idea what the maximum capacity of the existing building is as it relates to residency?
Mr. Carroll?
I don't have a maximum occupancy number. I can't remember how many nuns were there at the height of it, but it would depend on how it was developed. So.
Did I hear 20? 20, okay.
You can come
You
up
have
and...
the floor, in my opinion.
Would you like to ask your second question while you're up there?
My second question is, do we have any idea as to whether or not there is interest from any person or organization within the community that would want to purchase the property and not develop it?
Mr. Carroll?
I'm not aware of anyone who wants to purchase the property and just hold it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Go right ahead. Okay.
Kathy Luribier, 29 Rosedale Avenue.
Could you just drop your mask to speak because sometimes not very clear. Thank you.
29 Rosedale Avenue. The Carmelite nuns moved into that property in 1957. Previously to that, it was always owned, and still to this day owned by the Diocese of Rhode Island, of Providence. And they actually had a camp on that area. So that area has been mostly open space except for the building. The nuns came to Barrington when they ran out of room in Newport. Carmelite Discalced nuns take a vow of poverty, and they are contemplatives who pray for the world, who pray for everybody. And the people in this town knew a quiet presence for the last 57 years of a group of women that opened their doors, their hearts, their phones to anyone that came there. It had nothing to do with religion. They were there to listen and to pray for the world's ills to be solved in a peaceful manner. Now, they went as high as 20 members at some points. They were reduced down to the last 10 or 15 years, 12, and then most recently 9. Several had to be placed in nursing homes. The reason that they do not renovate the building themselves to be able to stay there or ask for anybody is because of their vows of poverty. So they give up everything when they go in there. They live off of donations, and they made incense that was supplied to some other monastery someplace else. These women that gave their lives to God and this community would be more than thrilled to find out that this is an opportunity for senior housing on that property. So I urge you to all stop and think. Of course, nobody wants another thing next to their house. I live in a little tiny house, and someone built a giant house next to me, and of course I don't like it, because I want things to stay the same. But as we've learned through the pandemic and everything that's happened in the last year, things are changing, and people need to move forward and have change for the better.
Yes.
Actually, she answered quite a few. There are a few more. When we moved into our home 40 years ago, it was an extremely active Carmelite monastery. Actually, they also would have nuns from all over the world come and be part of their retreats. Actually, too, the nuns, when we first moved there, were just actually able to start walking outside, and they were allowed to walk around the block. And many of them would come and sit at my doorstep and tell us the stories of how Mother, they called her Mother, the head, they were kept under lock and key. So Mother every night, the nuns would go to bed, the gates would close, and the key would lock them in for the evening, and in the morning, Mother would then let them out. The stories of these wonderful women just touched my heart. So it was an extremely active Carmelite monastery. And also, besides living off of donations, they also paid for everything themselves through their Social Security. So you're right, they took very much a vow of poverty. They did not go out into the neighborhood or into the town. They were cloistered nuns, and I believe right now there might only be 2 Carmelite cloistered monasteries left in the world.
Thank you. Very interesting. Okay, the microphones are empty. This is your town meeting at work, and thank you very much for everyone who took the time to come up and state your point of view about this motion. It's time now to make the vote happen. And we'll start, as we always do, with a voice vote. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Well, there's great exercise of vocal cords on both sides. But I think out of an abundance of caution here, I think we will do a standing vote. which will take a little bit of time, but I think there were so many points of view expressed tonight, I think we owe it to all those who expressed an opinion and those of you who chose to come tonight to know the vote by account. So if I could have the Board of Canvassers and the tellers prepare. The way this is going to work is we are going to ask, first of all, that you all stay seated, because that's a very important part of the standing vote process. And we are going to ask first that those of you who are in favor of the motion to stand at your seat, and the tellers are going to go up the rows, both in the center section and the outside section, and count you. Please remain standing until we get done with the count, and then we'll do the nays after we do the ayes. Does that make sense to everybody? Tellers up to the front. We're mustering the troops here. And those of you at the AV board in the back, is it possible to bring the house lights up a little bit for this? No, just up to get these lights up. Oh, there's nobody in the cafeteria either, that's right. Everyone's in the auditorium. There's no one in the cafeteria.
The cafeteria, there were only two when they came in.
Thank you for that. Okay, we ready? All right. All those in favor of the motion to appropriate... Yep, go ahead. All right. All right, we have a counter for the front, too. All those in favor of the motion appropriating $3,500,000 to fund the acquisition and preservation of the former Carmelite monastery and the financing of that through the issuance of general obligation bonds and or notes in an amount not to exceed $3,500,000. Please stand and stay standing. I'm standing, yes. Maybe. Let me know when you finish counting so these nice people can sit back down. But don't sit down yet. Tellers, can we let the folks sit down, or are we still needing to stand? I'd say you can all sit down. I'm making an executive decision. Also, Mr. Cunha would like to remind you that we do require masks, so if your mask is slipped off your face, please put it back on. Thank you. Okay, are we ready for the nays? Let me know when you're ready. Okay, those who are opposed to the motion, please stand and remain standing. Okay, everybody can sit down. Thank you very much for your patience. And thank you very much to the tellers for taking the time and going through the auditorium to count your votes. I've received the results of the vote. The votes are 150 in favor of the motion, 148 opposed. The motion passes. Okay, on to the next item. Somebody moves to the podium or to the mic, please. What's our count?
Mr. Moderator, sorry to make this longer, but I move that we do a paper ballot.
Okay. Is there a second for the motion? Okay, so here's how this works. By town charter, 20% of those present and voting must approve the motion to require a vote by paper ballot. We have in attendance tonight 305 residents, which means 20%, which is well, that's the count I have, and I don't know of any other count other than this. So 20% of 305 is 61, I think, right? I don't know, I'll have to do the math. But we need at least 60 votes to go to a paper ballot. If the motion passes, then the sheet of numbers you were given when you come into play. The number 1 ballot sheet, if this passes, would then be used in exchange for a ballot. The ballots will be handed to you. You go to the privacy booth and you drop your ballot in the ballot machine. So, but the first thing we have to do is the vote. Again, we're going to do it by standing vote. And there's no 2 votes here. It's 20% of the total present need to vote yes to go to a paper ballot. So that would be 60 people. So are you tellers ready? Okay. All those in favor of going to a paper ballot, which I would remind the audience will be about a 1-hour process to complete, please stand. Well, the opinion of those of the dais here is that we do have 60, so we will go to a paper ballot. Thank you very much. You can sit down. Thank you, tellers. Okay, I've been assured this won't take an hour, so part of that is up to you about being quick. And thankfully, all of us are here in the auditorium, so we can deal with it here in the auditorium. Those handling the ballots need to come forward for handing out ballots. When you're ready, folks, let me know. Fortunately, we have privacy booths on both sides of the auditorium and 2 voting machines, so we will be able to do this in tandem if we have enough people on hand to do that. Okay, so we need your number one, so tear your number one out of your little packet of, little sheet of numbers. And we're actually going to give the honor of the first vote to our town clerk, Meredith DeSisto, because as Julia Califano pointed out to me when she forwarded her script to me, if anyone knows how to do this, it would be Meredith. So Meredith, please go down, take your place of honor at the head of the line, and cast your ballot. After that, we will go through the rest of the dais up here on the stage, and then the tellers will begin calling you up by rows to come down and do your voting duty. Thank you. Okay, watch how Meredith's doing this here, right? You're turning in your number, right, Meredith? Turns in her number one. They give her a ballot sheet. She goes to the privacy booth. She marks the ballot, which I assume just has yes or no on it. I haven't had the privilege of seeing it yet. And then when she's done, she slips the ballot into the voting machine. Okay, give her a round of applause, everybody. Okay, tellers, we ready to do up front here first? Yes, a yes vote. Thank you, Mr. Cunha. Yes vote means that you are in favor of the resolution. A no vote means you are opposed to the resolution. Thank you. Not to be the mask police, but we have had a couple of comments from citizens who would prefer and feel more comfortable if those persons around them were wearing masks. There is a mask mandate, But we did ask everyone to try to be here in the auditorium to make the process a little more streamlined than having people in a different location, and we had to do a duplicative process. So please, out of consideration for those people who may be a little stressed by this, please do wear your mask when you're sitting, unless you're at a microphone speaking. Thank you. Last call for the vote on the resolution. If you're going to vote and you have a number 1 on your ballot card sheet, please come down, tear it off, give it to the teller, and get your ballot. All right, voting is now closed. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and for taking the time to vote. It'll take a few minutes for the tellers to pull the numbers off the machines, tally them, and hand me the result. So keep your masks on and be happy. I'm sorry for the delay. There seems to be an issue with getting the numbers out of the voting machine. So right now there's a hand count going on. We apologize for the delay. Hopefully we'll have numbers for you. I'll take that. Let me check on that. Okay, whoever made that suggestion to move on, that was a good suggestion. Thank you. This being my first year, I'm always open to good suggestions. So we are going to move on to a couple of other resolutions while this issue gets resolved. There are a couple of what I would describe as pretty much, hopefully, pretty much pro forma resolutions. So resolution number 4, which is a resolution of the financial town meeting authorizing issuance of tax anticipation notes not to exceed $5 million. You might recall this is a pretty routine motion. I'll let Mike Carroll introduce the motion and give you a brief description.
This is a motion that we make every year in the event that what happens is, we get tax funding in and we have expenses constantly. The tax funding kind of goes up and down. We make this motion every year, but we typically never use it because we're able to use our general fund to kind of finance ourselves going forward. But just in case, we like to make this motion. So I will make a motion of the FTM authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation notes.
Thank you. Do I have an enthusiastic second? Great. Okay, any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I like that. Thank you very much. Actually, it went so well I skipped one, so let's go back to number 3. And we'll do the resolution of the financial town meeting authorizing issuance of emergency notes to fund emergency appropriations not to exceed $5 million. And again, I'll ask Town Council President Mike Carroll to introduce the motion.
So this is another motion that it's a little bit like buying insurance. We're just making sure that these things don't happen. For example, when the sewer line kind of blew up, that was an unanticipated emergency that we had to spend some money on. We were able to, I think in that case, we were able to use our general fund again, and we would hope that we'd be able to do it, but just in case, we'd like authorization. So I make a motion authorizing the issuance of emergency notes to fund emergency appropriations.
Here, a second. Thank you for the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to keep moving along, and I'm going to skip over a couple of resolutions that may have a little bit more discussion behind them and try to see if we can power through some other stuff in the meantime. So if you will turn in your packets to page 9, we're going to start talking about first the school budget. You might remember that by Rhode Island law, voters can only make motions to increase or decrease the bottom line of the school budget. However, you may ask questions about individual budget items and make any non-binding recommendations. By the Barrington Town Charter, no motion to increase or decrease the school budget by more than $50,000 can be made unless it was pre-filed 5 business days before the meeting. This year, there are no pre-filed motions affecting the school budget. But if you have any questions or comments on the school budget, or if you wish to make a motion in an amount of $50,000 or less, this is the time to be heard. Does anyone have a comment or question on the school budget? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jim Hummel, 8 Harthwood Drive. I had I missed Dr. Dabb's overall presentation. I just had a general question before we get into the school budget. I have scoured this over the last hour and have not been able to find anywhere what the projected tax rate is going to be. I watched online, I heard your opening statement about that's going to depend on what happens here tonight.
Correct.
I have covered dozens and dozens of financial town meetings in my 40 years as a reporter. Financial Town Meeting 101 is, you've got your levy, you've got your budget, this is what the projected tax rate's going to be. Now, it changes a little this year because there was a reval, and I understand that. And a lot of people saw a significant increase, 12, 15, 20%. And so when you're voting on the budget, it would be nice to know, my house is valued at $450, it's valued at $600, it's valued at $900. What's the tax rate going to be so I can do the math? So on an $82 or an $83 million budget, $3.5 million might add 5, 10, 15, 20 cents, whatever. But we're operating in the dark right now, voting on any of this because we don't know what the bottom line in our taxes are going to be. So I appreciate the work that the Committee of Appropriations do. You do tireless work, you do thankless work, but somebody from the committee or the town council president or the town manager should be able to tell, what's the current tax rate right now, 20?
Current tax rate is $20.90 per thousand.
All right, so all things given, if the levy goes up by an average of 12 or 15% or whatever it is, there would be a corresponding drop. It's a moving target, but people want to know if I'm paying $8,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 this year, based on what I'm voting on tonight, how's that going to affect my taxes? So I would like to hear, before we discuss any line item, what is if this budget passes as is, with no other changes, what's the projected tax rate for next year?
$18.90.
Okay,
a
so
reduction of $2.
why was that not publicized?
It was publicized in the paper when we published it in the Barrington Times.
Okay.
Before the budget hearing, that information was in there.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I didn't hear that in your initial presentation.
It was also in the budget hearing a couple weeks ago, too.
Okay, so $18.90. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, back to the school budget. Anybody have any questions or comments about the school budget?
My name is Bev Migliori. I live at 51 Chatchapacasset Road. I just had a question about the school budget. The amounts that it went up were over the 4%. I understand that. And I understand that we're getting $2.8 million this year. Do you anticipate that $2.8 million to come next year? And if that doesn't come, what happens to next year's budget? I'm very disturbed that we're letting these budgets, both the municipal and the school budget, go over. And if we're plugging the hole this year with $2.8 million that I don't think we're getting next year, what's going to happen?
Someone on the school committee want to answer that? Doug?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. The $2 million increase in the state education aid is a result of the state funding formula, and that's based on a lot of moving parts, but we haven't had a lot of flexibility or a lot of variability in those numbers on behalf of the district in quite some time. So we're expecting that number to be consistent going forward. So the answer to your question is yes, we expect that money to be a constant revenue flow going forward for the town.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, it's time to go back and talk about the vote for the resolution regarding the purchase of the Carmelite Monastery. A hand count was done of the votes because of an issue with the voting machines, and the yes votes are 176, and the no votes are 175. Okay, we're going to go back now to the
and Armstrong, 55 Teat Avenue. I am concerned that we did a standing count and we had 150 yes, 148 no. We got to that standing vote because we did a voice vote, and which was inconsistent. So we did a recount. A recount with this is with the same cohort. So we did a standing vote, and that was too close to call. It was inconsistent. The tally people were getting different votes for the same, different amounts for the same section. So now you've moved to a machine vote, which malfunctioned, and we have 351 votes. So we have an additional 53 people who were summoned here, but that's not the original cohort, so that can't be a recount. So in my mind, it's an illegal vote. And I would like the solicitor to weigh in on this, and I'm also going to ask the Attorney General to do so tomorrow morning.
Mr. Ursillo?
Under the town charter, following either a voice vote or a vote by standing, the charter provides that if 20% of those present in the room request a secret paper ballot, that is the way the financial town meeting proceeds. That is what you did, and the vote that stands this evening is the one from the secret paper ballot. And as long as the voting booths were open, individuals are allowed to come to the financial town meeting. They do not have to be here at the very beginning. They can enter at any time. There's nothing in the charter that prevents individuals from coming here and voting on items in the last 5 minutes of the meeting, if that's the case. As long as the voting is ongoing, a person who comes in late can vote. Now, once the voting has stopped, that person can't vote. And I can give you an example that happened this evening. A gentleman came down here after the voting machines were closed and was told he could not vote. So we followed all the proper procedures, and it is my opinion that the vote is proper and will stand.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ursillo. You're making for a very interesting first financial town meeting for me. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go. Yes, I'm sorry. Can you go over to the mic, sir? Thank you.
Under these circumstances, I would recommend that there be a recount. People shuffling back and forth, the counting going on under pressure with all of the people talking, shuffling back and forth. There should be a recount, and I would make a motion that a recount be conducted.
Okay, we have a motion that there is a recount of the vote that was just completed by secret paper ballot. We have a second. Any discussion on this motion?
Point of order.
Yes.
It sounds like this is something that could be infinite. We could have a question to recount after the recount after the recount. At a certain point, is there a finality of the vote?
I think there will always be a question on this vote if it is not recounted, where the balance is by one vote. It would be up to the person.
Excuse me. If you have a comment you wish to make, please come to the microphone and address the comment to the moderator.
My belief, there was always
Could you
supposed
please
to be...
state your name and your address?
I apologize. Deborah Nizer, 30 Adelaide. My understanding is there should always be two people, one from each party, doing the count. You know what? I don't know that. I just saw somebody over here counting ballots alone, and I saw a bunch of people over there counting ballots. I don't think it was a balanced. Listen, if it is what it is, I think that's great. But I think for anybody tonight to leave here with a question in their mind, it is unfair. I think this whole thing stunk with the fact that their counts were off. People were dialing people in to vote who walked in here. There's no plan. There is nothing but a bunch of empty promises. Let's make it right. We have the most divisive town council that I've ever seen in this town. And now tonight we now have a divisive financial town meeting, and we need to put a stop to it all.
Okay, we have a comment over here on this side.
These are the totals from the machine. Okay?
Yep.
Right there. And right there. You would just check, well,
If I may, just before you speak. So the machine was, I think the issue here, if I heard it right, Claire Boyce, the chair of the Board of Canvassers, there was a concern that if the machines were shut down to do the count on this ballot, that it was possible we could not bring them back up again technologically to do a future ballot. So they did the hand counting. However, in the interest of trying to confirm the count, the Board of Canvassers made the decision to shut the machines down and confirm the count as to what was in the machine, and the count stands. In other words, the numbers that have come out of the machine on the tally sheets are in fact 176 to 175. Now that we have a motion on the floor and a second to do a recount, but I wanted to make sure the audience here was aware of the fact that I do have in my hand the counts from the machine, and they confirm what the tellers had done by hand. So thank you. Did you want to go forward with your comment? Any other comment on this motion? You can make a motion after we are complete with this motion. Yes, sir.
Frank Ginarelli, 59 Brook Street. I would like you, moderator, to consult with the counselor and determine whether you should declare myself and all the speakers who have just come forward with this motion to recount as out of order.
I'm sorry, the request for recount is out of order?
That is correct.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Amen. Well, I'm learning lots of new things tonight. So after consulting with the town solicitor, the feeling is that because we had a hand verification of the tally of the votes confirmed by the machine vote, that we have in fact done a recount. Really, we have the machine vote tally, we have the hand count tally, and therefore the motion that was made is out of order. Okay. On to the next item. Yes. Okay, we were on the school budget, and we had no comments or questions on the school budget. That was on page 9. So hearing none, we're going to move. Yes, Hold, I heard a hold. Thank you for the hold. Come out of the darkness.
Jack Siegel.
Could you take your mask off, sir?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sure. Jack Siegel, 410 County Road. One of the few budget items that is listed as $0 is curriculum development. From what I've read lately, the district has outsourced curriculum to consultants and corporate entities. As of a year ago, there was a very clear printed curriculum on the middle school website, which has disappeared. When I had a conference with the middle school principal, I asked why this pre-approved curriculum was not being taught instead of politically motivated things by the Southern Poverty Law Center, materials coming from all sorts of outside entities that were not approved. It seems as though the curriculum for our students and our children has been outsourced to people who have not been approved by parents or students. There's no money in here for any of us to take part in developing a curriculum. And I would like to see where these so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants who are creating our curriculum are getting paid instead of having money for local residents to develop their own curriculum for their own kids. There was previously a curriculum that existed on the website that included a lot of classical literature, a lot of other things, but I don't see where we have the ability to develop our own curriculum in the district, and why are we outsourcing it to these so-called experts or consultants and paying all this money to people who were not necessarily vetted by parents or PTOs. So I would like whatever it is to these outside consultants to be stricken and for the money to be put into curriculum development.
So that's your recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, the school committee and school administrators have taken your recommendation under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any response you'd like to make down there at the school end of the table?
The only response I have is that curriculum development is all in-house, so there may be times that we may hire a consultant to work with us, but our teachers work with our administration and our curriculum director, and we develop our curriculum mostly based on state standards that we have to follow. So it's in-house.
Do parents have a voice in any of this?
There's opportunities where they do presentations at PTO meetings and so forth when they talk about curriculum changes, so it's an opportunity to be heard.
But do
they're
parents...
They're not involved in curriculum development.
Parents have no involvement in curriculum development?
No, it's all teacher-driven.
And do students?
Students give feedback on curriculum, yeah.
Okay.
But the development itself, the writing of it and the standards written is done by the teachers, guided by administration.
And these consultants, diversity, equity, inclusion consultants, pushing the critical race theory and other types of learning.
Well, I'm not going to get into that discussion, but
this is the right place.
No.
Yes, it is. You know, my child had to go to school. He didn't want to go to career day because he thought people would think he was rich and would beat him up and hate him. Okay? There's all sorts of terrible psychological harm you're causing our children, and this needs to be considered. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Anything else on the school budget? Okay, so I'm at kind of a decision point here. We're at 20 minutes of 11, and we could continue to get through the operating budgets. We do have another motion in the form of a $500,000 request for affordable housing that may generate a lot of conversation. I can go back to that and do that now and see what the what the reaction is, especially since so many of you have stayed, maybe in part to hear about that. But we do have a lot of pages to get through in the call. So let's go back to page, yes? Oh, you think? Okay, the solicitor asked if there was a vote required on the school budget. Eventually, we will vote on the town's budget, which will include the school budget. There are no changes to it, so we will come back to that at a future time, but we're trying to be a little bit efficient here. So let's go back to the resolution number wait a minute. I'm sorry, we're going to get to those later. The other resolutions will be later in the budget. So let's go on to the municipal budget. That's on page page 13. Now, unlike the school budget, which is a bottom line budget by rules set by state law, the municipal budget is a line item budget. Motions may be made to increase or decrease any department budget, but other than pre-filed motions relating to the municipal budget, no motion can be made to increase or decrease any department budget by more than $50,000 or 20%, whichever is more, or excuse me, whichever is less. For instance, motions to increase the first line item, first category of the town council of $40,600 cannot exceed 20%, up or down of $8,120. And large departments such as police, fire, and DPW cannot exceed $50,000. There are no pre-filed motions that would impact any proposed town operating budget category. However, there are 3 pre-filed motions that would impact, listed on page 8 in your documents, that would impact 2 non-operating town budgets if they're passed. One, originally filed by Jacob Breyer, was to add $250,000 to the land acquisition fund, which impact the town debt total, and the second, filed by the town council, would create a new capital reserve fund with an allocation of $500,000 for affordable housing creation and preservation, which could impact the municipal capital item. And the third, filed by Ann Chapin, to add $7,000 to the Parks and Trail Improvement Funds, would also impact the municipal capital budgets. We'll address those 3 motions when we get to them later in the document. And again, we're going to go through the lines, the department lines one by one. And as I said at the outset, I'm going to try to move through this pretty quickly. But again, you're out there in the dark. If you have a question or comment or wish to make a motion on any of the different department line items, please say hold, and we will wait for you to come down and address the group at the microphone. So the first proposed town budget category is town council. Any questions or motions on that? I'm not going to keep saying that. I'm now going to just move into the town manager budget. Town clerk, probate municipal, that ends page 13, turn to page 14. Board of Canvassers, the finance department, computer operations, tax assessor, sealer of weights and measures, the Planning, Building, and Resiliency Department, Human Resources, the Recreation Department, Senior Services, on to page 16, the Library, comment on the library? Okay.
Jack Siegel, 410 County Road. I'm also a member of the Library Board of Trustees and have been for 3 years. I'm formally asking that the COA render moot its decision to approve the most recent Barrington Library budget, specifically before the town's public hearings on it. It appears that your board was misled in its official presentation and validity of submission. As it states in the Board of Trustees bylaws, Section 2, it shall be the duty of the board to present the financial needs of the library to the municipal governing body and ensure adequate public support for good library service. The budget was not formally written, submitted to, debated, agreed to, and/or ratified by the board as a whole. The legally posted...
May I just clarify board here? Which board?
The Board of Trustees
of the library.
Of the
okay,
library,
thank you.
Of which I'm a member. The legally posted and accepted minutes of previous meetings demonstrably reflects this. I should know since I served as the acting secretary of the board during this time. In fact, the only mention of any particular proposed budget items in the official minutes was a request to, quote, the town for a 2% increase in salaries. This is one indication of many in the official minutes that demonstrates the director and/or board president submitted the budget to you all and the town without any BPL Board of Trustees input. While I cannot speak of foreknowledge with any of my colleagues, I was denied any opinion or voice in the process. Certainly it is demonstrable by in your own records that it did not include my signature as a board member, and therefore was also precluded the ability to propose well-reasoned amendments to the budget in both your hearing and in the public budget hearing given the time before June 16th meeting. It should be noted that this request was made to me by constituents, of which there were at least 20 to 30 at the last BPL trustees meeting. I don't know how many other meetings get 20 to 30 people showing up, but we had one. The gist of my request goes to the very heart of why there are town boards in the first place. This was later in a number of autocratic maneuvers taken by the board president and the library director. I'm certain there are a great many unethical actions perpetrated by this pair when it comes to the library's budget and spending, including many violations of open meeting laws. I'm happy to work with you. If I must submit an FOIA request, so be it. I cannot fathom the retroactive consequences that might be incurred. As all of you work together and come to decisions as a group, I hope that you will respect and reinforce the rights over government volunteers, the ability to do the same.
Time's up.
Okay.
Thank you. You have no recommendation to change the budget amount, however, correct?
If you want to be sued for me denying the board its rights to the board is supposed to submit the budget. The board did not discuss or approve the budget. You guys approved the budget that was not submitted by the board. So therefore, we were denied our rights, and it should be invalid.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Process matters, right?
Yes, Mr. DeWitt.
But a motion could be made to I need you to restate the rules. A motion could be made to reduce the budget by 20% up to $50,000. Correct?
That is correct under current rules, either up or down, an increase or decrease.
If I could give you the numbers that the library spent $1.25 million for 247 patrons, which is over $2,900 per patron, I think you would see why we need a reduction of at least $50,000.
Would you like to make that as a motion?
I would like to make that a motion.
So your motion, please state a motion for the town.
My motion is to reduce the town library budget by $50,000. You should also audit the library if you really want to find where that money's going.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to reduce the library budget by $50,000. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Anyone else want to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Cunha.
I want to tell you that the library director submitted her budget to me and was thoroughly reviewed by both myself and the town council. The library's budget increase this year is 2% over last year. We have one of the best library in the state. The 2% doesn't even cover the salary and the medical and the benefits increases. So their operational costs have actually reduced. So I would be in favor of supporting the budget as submitted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cunha. Anyone else wish to make a motion, or excuse me, make a comment? Yes. Mr. DeWitt, sorry, you're over there in the peripheral vision zone.
I was in receipt of that email, as were others on the Committee on Appropriations, and it's very interesting and will be reviewed. I do think that process is important. And yes, it is a 2% increase, but there is a process. And if the bylaws outline a process, that process ought to be followed. I can't speak to whether it was or it wasn't. It appears from that email that it wasn't. We're going to do this again next year. And those of us who are curious will look into it. But I do think process matters.
Thank you. Yes?
Laura Young, 14 Manor Road. I agree that process matters. Process matters tremendously. I am also a member of the Board of Trustees, and on the bylaws, one of the most important things is that the board members, trustees don't act unilaterally. We act as a collective. There has been no discussion about this in the board, which is where that topic should have come. So that's our process, and that has not been honored, and I would move that we reject this, or I would, suggest that we not vote for this motion because it is out of order in my mind completely.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, no further discussion. There is a motion on the floor to decrease the town library budget by $50,000. All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed? Nay. Okay, the motion does not pass. Thank you. On to the fire department. Turning to page 17, the police department. Dispatch. Animal control. Harbor control. Public Works. Turn to page 19. Benefits. Town solicitor. Insurance. Agency support. Turn to page 20. Government Center Utilities. PEC Center Utilities. Public Safety Complex Utilities. And miscellaneous. So as of right now, having heard no other comments or motions to change the amount of the municipal operating budget, it stands as the number you see there on your page of $18,636,550, and school operating below that is at $56,790,991. So now we're going to turn to page 21, which is town debt. There has been a motion made by Town Council member Jacob Breyer to increase the town debt total by $250,000. Mr. Breyer has notified me that Kathy LaRiviere will make this motion this evening. Would Mrs. LaRiviere please come to the microphone to introduce the motion?
Catherine LaRiviere, 29 Rosedale Avenue. I am speaking on behalf of Jacob Breyer of 21 Western Avenue to move to add $250,000 to the Land Acquisition Fund to be used to purchase the Carmelite Monastery on Watson Avenue. The funds represent the maximum annual cost to finance the sale price to be negotiated by the council or an agent thereof.
Thank you, Ms. LaRiviere. Do we have a second to the motion? Do we have a second? Before we move to discussion, I'd like Council President Carroll, if you wouldn't mind, to just explain a little bit more about what the purpose of this motion and amount is meant to do.
Mr. Moderator, if you don't mind, I'd like to speak to this as the town solicitor. So while we were having the vote on the original motion to authorize $3.5 million, which also included the financing thereof, as you recall, the motion was to appropriate $3.5 million to fund the acquisition and preservation of the former Carmelite Monastery and the financing thereof through the issuance of general obligation bonds and/or notes in an amount not to exceed $3.5 million. That motion did pass. I've researched with the Finance Director, Kathy Raposa, similar such motions that have been made in the past at financial town meetings where the financial town meeting voted to authorize the incurrence of debt through a bond issue. They were for different projects and they were for different amounts. In all of those prior financial town meetings, when such a motion passed, there was not a need to have a subsequent motion later in the meeting to authorize a specific amount of money to pay for that debt because the authority to pay for the debt was in the original motion. I've compared the language in this motion directly to the language in past resolutions that have come before the financial town meeting. And based on that, it is my legal opinion that this motion is basically out of order or should be withdrawn because this body has already approved the financing of this $3.5 million bond issue, in a similar manner in which it did so in over a dozen other financial town meetings. So that is the basis of my opinion. I believe that this motion should be withdrawn or should be just declared moot because it's no longer necessary.
Thank you. Julie, in all your years of doing this, you ever have anything like this happen? All right. So I believe the next thing we have to do is ask Mrs. LaRiviere to come up and ask her if she, as the person making the motion, is willing to now withdraw the motion. Is that correct, Mr. Solicitor?
That is what my recommendation would be, is that she withdraw the motion. And she has the authority to withdraw the motion.
And you are putting me in one heck of a spot.
Join the club.
I understand what you're saying. However, I know we don't operate under Robert's Rules of Order, but you have a motion and a second on the floor, and they're into discussion. So don't you have to call for a vote before I withdraw the motion? I'm trying to get out of this.
Yeah, no, I totally understand, and we're not going to put you in that position, so you should just go and sit down again.
I can go home now?
So here's, whether this motion is voted up or down, it's not going to make a difference because the financing has already been proved in the prior motion.
So then, may I ask a question? Okay, just a quick question.
Okay,
quick question. What we voted on essentially is now encompassing this $250,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I will withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
Does the person who seconded the motion agree to withdraw the motion? Only a second, okay. The motion was withdrawn. Thank you, Town Solicitor Mike Ursillo. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so that motion has been withdrawn. We do have a second motion. The second motion, which impacts the capital items on the municipal budget, as on page 22, is also printed on page 8. It's a motion submitted by the Town Council for the creation of a capital reserve fund with an allocation of $500,000 for the creation and preservation of affordable housing in the community. Town Council President Mike Carroll will introduce the motion.
Thank you. We, Michael Carroll, 24 3rd Street, Jacob N.S. Breyer, 21 Western Ave, Annalise Conway, 51 Bluff Road, and Carl Costell, 266 New Meadow Road, move that the financial town meeting create a capital reserve fund with an allocation of $500,000 in this year's budget for the creation and preservation of affordable housing in the community, and that those funds be dedicated to the creation of and/or capture of affordable housing units using a method or methods proposed by the Housing Board of Trustees and approved by the Barrington Town Council. Such methods may include, but are not limited to, a down payment assistance program and/or the purchase, deed restriction, and resale of properties in Barrington.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Good evening.
Is this on?
We got a mic over there.
There we go. Can you hear me? Good evening, Mr. Moderator, and ladies and gentlemen up there on the dais. Jason Knight, 1 Newbrook Drive, and I just have a question for the proponent of the motion, Mr. Carroll, if he'll yield.
I will yield.
Mr. Carroll, Mr. President, I'm asking this, I think I know the answer, but if I have the question, I know many others do as well. This measure you're putting forth for an extra $500,000 to be used towards affordable housing needs in town, this is separate and apart from the Carmelite Monastery motion that we just did. Is that correct? It's for, it could be intertwined at some point with some rental assistance or something like that, but it's not, it's contemplated as as a different program. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's not related to that original motion that was passed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Tom Hermashaitis, 1 Howard. I feel this motion is out of order. We're getting $4.2 million in state aid from the federal government over the next 2 years. I think we should be looking to spend that money and not come out of the taxpayers' money. I know a lot of people aren't in favor of this. I'm not sure if they're all here tonight, but if we want, we can start to dial people to come vote. But I would also recommend that we go to a paper ballot right off the bat. Thank you.
So you're making that as a motion?
I am. I'll make a motion that we go to paper ballot when it comes time to vote.
Okay. We have a second? All right. We have a second. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the motion before we get to the paper ballot question?
Hi, Chris Brady, 6 Jenks Garden Lane. I serve as the chair of the Barrington Housing Board of Trustees, and I'm here tonight to ask you to vote to reinstate the funding for affordable housing that the Committee on Appropriations removed from the Town Council's budget. We moved to Barrington in 1998 and were able to buy our 4-bedroom home for $168,000. Felt like a lot at the time. With the run-up in real estate prices, we would not be able to buy our house today. It would simply not be affordable, and I imagine many of you are in the same position. So why should you support affordable housing? First of all, there's nowhere near enough in town. I think that's pretty obvious. Only 3.3% of the housing units in Barrington are affordable. We need 420 new units to hit the state-mandated goal of 10% that is also required by the town's comprehensive plan. A community is stronger when people who work there can afford to live in it. Affordable housing also encourages economic diversity and provides a bridge, an opportunity for young families and young people who grew up in town to stay in town and to live here. The recommended appropriation is a modest contribution of $31 per resident. It's not burdensome. It's also not an ongoing budget line item. This is one-time capital funding. It does not commit the town to any future funding for affordable housing. Demonstrating the town's commitment to affordable housing helps preserve local control of development in town when we're in front of the State Housing Appeals Board, or SHAB. It's important for the town to commit some of its own funds to affordable housing. If you really think something's important, you need to support it financially and not just with nice words. It's not burdensome, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Catherine Quinn, 23 Brown Ave. Sorry. Oh, okay.
Yeah, take your mask down.
Catherine Quinn,
There we
23
go.
Brown
Now
Ave. I can't really follow that with anything more salient, so I just wanted to defer to that previous statement. But I also wanted to add that the median owner-occupied home value in Barrington is $418,000 compared to the U.S. Owner-occupied home value, which is $204,000. That's over twice the amount. And I really appreciated the woman who came up and spoke about living in the affordable housing on Chachapakachet. I'm a single, low-income parent. I have 3 wonderful children who attend Barrington Public Schools and have since my daughters were in first grade, and my son was in 3rd grade. My son also just graduated from Barrington High School and will be attending Northeastern University for engineering. We are an awesome family. My kids make a lot of contributions to this town, and we love living here. And there's no way that we could live here if there wasn't affordable housing. So I really, really support this, and I appreciate what the man before me just said. You have to add some financial investment. There is no reason. I also just wanted to say that I think it was unacceptable, and I disagree with the statement, why do we need affordable housing in Barrington, that was previously made in the other debate. We need affordable housing because people deserve to live in this wonderful community, not just people who are extremely financially secure. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Elizabeth Grieser, 42 Watson. I was wondering if the Committee on Appropriations could speak to, I believe they vetted this originally and took it out, and I was wondering if they could just briefly speak to why. I'm sure there was a reason, and if they could just touch on that.
We did not vet the program directly. We only voted for the overall budget and chose not to include it in the budget, and that vote was 3-2. I can only speak to some people just being concerned that there was an influx of cash coming in from the federal government of $4.3 million, and that possibly that could open up an avenue to use funds like that to fund a program like this, but we don't know the details of that, so we thought it might be premature. But that was just from some of the people on the committee.
And additionally, as many of you may recall, last year we passed a state bond that was going to fund affordable housing. There's also legislation in the General Assembly that is contemplating a transference tax. So that would provide an ongoing source of funding for affordable housing. None of us are against affordable housing. We just think right now there's a lot going on. There's the federal money, there's the state money, there's this transference money. We just approved $3.5 million. So I think we are doing a lot for affordable housing. This is another $500,000 on top of it, again, without a plan. Now, they could go into a down payment plan, which would require you to put a deed restriction on your home. That would tie your home value to the labor market, not the real estate market, it would probably eliminate a third of your equity because the real estate market has been growing faster than the labor market. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And if they're not going to use it for a down payment program and they're going to use it towards something else, well, now we've got $4 million towards something else without a specific plan. And I think that was certainly for me as one member of the committee, my concern was that the down payment plan, as well as intended as it is somewhat flawed, and that they really didn't have a more broader plan that they could explain to us and the other sources that were happening. A lot going on. Let's wait. We just did 3.5. I don't think we need to go to 4.
Thank you. So to be clear, we have money coming in, and this is something that maybe we don't need to add additional tax burden to people, knowing that we have a large amount of money coming in already without having to add. Respectfully, when you throw out a number like it's only $38 more per person or it's only X amount, those add up. And for one person, you know, that it might sound good for that one thing, but when you throw in a lot of other stuff, it all adds up. And it's not just $38 per person. It's your tax bill at the end of the year. Nobody here pays $38 in taxes at the end of the year. So when you know you're having a large amount of money, I agree. I believe it's prudent to wait and use money you're already getting without adding to the already incredible tax burden that we have in this town right now. Thank you.
Yes.
Carla DiStefano, 23 Pine Avenue. I'm here speaking both as a member of the Housing Trust Board of Trustees as well as a longtime professional in affordable housing. One of the things I would like to say is that maybe some of the COA members should come to the Housing Trust meetings, because then you would be better informed and accurately informed about how some of the programs work, as well as how there may or may not be money coming into the town. But to Mr. DeWitt's point about, well, we're already putting $3.5 million in, so why should we put another $500,000 in? You spent the first part of the meeting talking about how you didn't even know this meeting was going to talk about $3.5 million. You took that $500,000 out before you even knew about the $3.5 million. So I would call it a very disingenuous statement. I would also like to say your information about how affordable housing programs work, okay, come from probably something you read that you interpret on your own. So I invite you to come to the next meeting of the Affordable Housing Board of Trustees here in town, and you will understand how challenged it is, A, to live in this town, and the fact that most of those federal programs would be enhanced by an investment of this town of $500,000, because there are many programs that require matching funds. And you don't understand that, okay? You don't understand that because you don't know much about affordable housing. And I'm just going to finish. He doesn't. I'm just going to finish with this, okay? What Chris Brady didn't talk about, and what the other woman, Catherine Quinn, who I just met last week, didn't talk about is the town of Barrington should really be embarrassed for its lack of support. I'm working with the town of Jamestown. I'm working with other towns right now. $500,000 is a pittance to this town, and it really is. And I live here in a very small Barrington house, and I will tell you, okay, Barrington should be embarrassed, and check at what the other towns put in. Thank you.
Dr. Bath.
We did receive an invitation also from Ms. Young, and that's greatly appreciated. Mr. Carroll has attended several of our meetings and talked extensively about the program that he had started in 2014, and that this would be similar to that program in that it's a down payment assistance program. My feeling was that with $4.3 million coming into the town, they still do not know how that money will be able to be spent. And we could possibly do more with that money if we look at all the different types of ways that we can spend that money. So that's where we were coming from. It's not that we don't know and appreciate what you're doing with affordable housing. We are a budget commission, and there's a lot of money coming into this town between the $4.3 million in federal money and the middle school excess, and it just needs to be looked at collectively.
Yes, Mr. DeWitt.
And I'll be the first to admit I don't have a lifetime of experience in affordable housing, though I did have a conversation with Mr. Brady to try to understand the program a little bit, to try to get more informed, because it is a very complicated area. I get that. And after that conversation, I came to the same conclusion. So with all due respect, I am trying to learn, and I did try to learn. And again, I do think this town is doing a lot, and there's a lot of noise going on, and that's why I voted the way I voted. The 3.5 had nothing to do with it, but tonight, that brings a lot of weight to the conversation.
You want to come up to the mic if you'd like to speak again. In the meantime, we'll... Okay. Yes.
Liana Cassar.
Yep.
Liana Cassar, 2 Hope Court. Just would like to address one item in regards to the potential funding coming at some point. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know exactly what that's going to be. So I think in the same vein as the $3.5 million, that's something we can plan for in the future. Affordable housing is something that the state of Rhode Island, as well as all of our municipalities, have underfunded for not just years, but decades, and it has resulted in a disparity in access to resources, including access to education, access to clean air and water, access to safe communities. By making this fairly minimal investment in affordable housing, which is affordable housing for people who have sort of dealt with poverty for a long period of time, or have intermittent instances where they may have financial constraints and need more affordable housing for a time. That is what we do as neighbors. This is an investment that will pay off in spades for our community and will hopefully increase the diversity, but also hopefully increase the ability of certain families and individuals to be able to stay within our community when they have the inevitable ups and downs of life and financial crisis. And I would argue that the compassion of our community needs to start with investing in homes and housing. So I urge you to support this.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Okay, I think we're at voting time. Oh, wait. I see you. Want to
Lynn?
drop your mask, please?
I'm not able to, but I'm not able to
Okay,
drop
that's
my
fine.
mask, but I hope you can hear me. I'll speak clearly.
Yes.
Lynn Taylor, 12 Clark Road. I understand a motion was made to go right to a paper ballot, but I'm asking if there's a process by which we could just start at this hour for people who have to get to work early in the morning. I'm sure you're all very tired, you've had a long day. Could we just start with a standard yay or nay? And if it seems like it's completely, you're not clear, then go to a paper ballot. But if it's very obvious that the yays or nays have it, we could stop that next hour and proceed with the other business. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, thank you. The motion would need to be withdrawn for that to happen. Okay, the motion is still on the table. There is a second. This motion requires a 20% of those present and voting need to stand up for the paper ballot. But before we do that, I see Mr. Knight is back. Nice to see you
Tonight,
again.
1 Newbrook Drive. That's what I was going to say. So there's a motion and a second, and
Yes.
we need a vote on the issue of a paper ballot, right?
Correct.
And is that done with the 20% stand-up? Or
Correct.
is that a voice vote first?
No.
All right, thank you.
The motion was made to go directly to paper ballot. Okay, so the tellers need to spring into action here because we have a motion and a second for a vote by paper ballot. And because we don't know the exact count in the room, we're going to have to figure that out too, so we know whether 20% of those present and voting are voting for a paper ballot.
Do you want to see first, just by standing up, how many people stand up? Just eye it first?
Yes? Okay. Yes, we can do that. All right. Thank you, Councilor. Okay, so 20% of those in the room and voting would need to stand up to require a paper ballot. So at this time, those who wish to see a paper ballot on this motion, please stand. Thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Ursillo. My eyes say that we do not have 20% of the members present and voting vote for a paper ballot. Therefore, we will move first to a voice vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Nay. Okay, the opinion of those down the table from me are saying that we'll need to do a standing vote again. So we're going to have a standing vote as we did before. Let the tellers get themselves ready, and then we'll ask for the yea votes to stand. Okay, so we're ready now to move forward with the vote. A yes vote means that you are supporting the addition of $500,000 to the municipal capital budget for the affordable housing assistance. Okay, so yes is for affordable housing, and with the ayes, the yes votes, please stand. Yes, Vanna. Thank you. Okay, we have the results. The noes can sit down. Thank you very much. The yeses are 141. The noes are 69. So the motion passes. Okay, we're actually pretty close to being done. Meredith on my left here tells me. We do need to go back one page, because I forgot to ask you about the total category of town debt, which includes not only the principal but also the interest, just to make sure that we've covered that item. Any discussion on that? We have now a municipal capital item increase of $500,000, but does anyone have any other comments, questions, or motions on other parts of the budget? Sorry? Oh, the bocce. Oh, sorry. Yes. You can tell it's getting late. Sorry. I like bocce too, so. All right. All right, let's do the bocce one. All right, back on page 8 in your call, a motion submitted by Ann Chapin to increase the municipal capital fund account for park and trail improvements by $7,000. So would Ms. Chapin like to come to the microphone and present her motion? Nice to see you, Ann.
You too. I am Ann Chapin. I'm a Barrington resident, registered voter, living at 26 Roberta Drive in Barrington. And I'm asking that you add to your 21-22 financial budget line item municipal capital requests under parks and trails improvements, funding for bocce and croquet courts. Per your regulation of 20% is the maximum amount allowed, so I'm applying for $7,000.
Thank you. Do we have a second for Ann's motion? Second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Yes. Oh, Mr. Cunha. Your mic is not broadcasting. Speak up.
Okay, I'm opposed to this motion. Oh, there we go. I'm opposed to this motion because it has not been fully vetted. I'm not saying that bocce and croquet courts aren't worthwhile. The cost is $65,000 to install these courts, the estimated cost. Plus, there's maintenance costs that our Department of Public Works would have to do. These are not just regular fields that need to be cut. There probably have to be equipment purchased, and there'd have to be manpower put into maintaining these courts. Most importantly, the area that they designated for these courts is right behind the library, where we use that for library outdoor programs. We use it for senior center outdoor programs, and it would eliminate that use of that area for those types of programs. I think this, and in addition, the senior center has been closed for over a year. We don't know what the utilization is going to be, and so I think that we need to consider this carefully, but we need to do our homework, more homework first before we proceed.
Okay, we've heard from the town manager. Anyone else wish to comment on the motion? Yes.
Ann Strong, 55 Teat Avenue. Since tonight is the night to accuse people of being disingenuous, I would like to tell Mr. Cunha I think he's being disingenuous. We just voted on a $3.5 million resolution with absolutely zero plan. Zero plan. You just did the same for another $500,000. Really? $7,000? You should be ashamed of yourself.
Hello, Margaret.
Hello. Margaret Kane, 150 Alfred Drown Road. I was a former chair of the Senior Services Advisory Committee. And universally, we've heard tonight, and it's been true, we have ignored the seniors in this town. And this is one time that we've got a chance for $6,000, ladies and gentlemen, to do something to help the seniors. And the other part of that is we talk about vetting. This has been approved by the Senior Services Group, by the Town Council, by 3 or 4 other groups, all of them voting yes to have this money put into the budget. And I would encourage us to do that because otherwise we do look as silly.
Yes.
Ann Chapin, 26 Roberta Drive. Kay Chapin has done all the work to get this approved so far, and she asked me to read a statement on her behalf. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. I'm asking the town to join me to bring a senior park to Barrington. Croquet and bocce can be played at all levels of ability and enjoyed by all ages. Seniors have contributed a significant amount of taxes to our schools and our playgrounds, plus a splash pad without any designated area for them to enjoy and exercise outdoors. The Town Council, Senior Board, Parks and Recreation, Public Works, and Friends have all approved this plan to be located behind the library. As a personal reference, a few years ago, Kay has worked with Debbie bocce on the children's upstairs library, and together they raised over $3 million. Please, let's work together to enhance the quality of life in Barrington for our senior population. Thank you for your consideration.
John Taylor, 55 Bales Avenue, former Recreation Director. I met with Jim 2 years ago, his staff, the member of the Recreation Department, the school board, I should say the Recreation, I'll get it straight, the, now, yeah, with Park and Recreation, man, and also the high school athletic director, going over the need to upkeep some of the things that we approved of on the recreation board for upkeep of the tennis courts and also all the sport fields that need to be covered. I haven't seen no action on that, and you use this as an excuse for not having put this in place. What a bunch of baloney, really. You haven't done a damn thing to keep anything up here. You build all these things and it goes down the tube. People worked hard to put these things down and get it done, and you sit there and say, oh, we're not going to build this because we don't have the money to fix it. Bull crap. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tom Bruckner, 4 Ellis Street. I just have a question on the resolution itself.
Yes.
It states that she's applying for $7,000.
Correct.
Mr. Cunha just said he got an estimate of $65,000. I'm not quite sure what happens if the resolution is approved and it turns out that the courts are far in excess of $7,000. What is the commitment if the resolution is passed and it exceeds $7,000?
I will speak in general terms about capital funds, and I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about different funding categories for the city. So a capital fund budget allows dollars to be put in for spending in the upcoming year or spending over 2 or more future years. So this amount, $7,000, would be added to a capital fund, and it's possible that there could be additional allocations made in future years. Would that be correct, Mr. Cunha? Yeah.
The capital fund can continue from year to year.
Right.
So you could put $7,000 in this year and then add money in the following out years. And the 7 would remain.
Right.
So if it's passed, this resolution is passed tonight for $7,000, but when they go to get a cost for the bocce courts and it's far in excess of that, they wouldn't be able to be built next year. You might be several years down the road before you have enough money to build them. Is that correct? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm a visitor, but I am a taxpayer. My name is Kate Chapin. I'm at 10 Blount Circle.
Yes, Mrs. Chapin, I appreciate your coming. Unless you are a registered voter in the town of Barrington.
I understand. I am willing to seek funding privately for this. The $7,000 is just to have an endorsement by the town so we can move forward with the funding. It's the summer. I want to get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? So the motion before you is to add $7,000 to the, oh, sorry. I look one way and
sorry,
somebody creeps
really
up on
quick.
the other side.
I'm Amy Hogarth,
Yes.
417 Soams. I just wanted to say I've had kind of a nice democracy experience today. First of all, I want to thank everyone, the town council. The work that they've done is really incredible, and I appreciate it. And the work that people have done on the budget, I really also appreciate all of the intense work. I couldn't do it in a million years. I said I'd be brief. Okay, so, but behind me, the ladies, some of the ladies for the bocce are behind me, and they disagreed with a lot of things I thought for this whole thing, but they really also helped me with the town council rules and the voting, and we had some friendly exchanges, and I introduced myself, and I don't know, we voted for housing for seniors. Let's give them their bocce, okay?
Thank you. Okay, anyone else speak to the motion? I don't see anybody on either side now. So, all those in favor of the motion to add $7,000 to the capital fund account for park and trail improvements, please signify by saying yes. Yes. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, back to your big sheet here. So we have now municipal capital items. Anyone else have any questions on any of the other items in capital items? Yes, hold. All right.
Almost. Good morning.
Almost.
Tom Rimashaitis, 1 Howard Street. We're on the municipal capital items, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to add $50,000 to the Public Works line capital item, bringing their total to $450,000 this year. And that $50,000 would be used to help the guy that paints all the lines. It's a new machine that come out. We were talking about it, and there was a confusion about who was going to pay for it. Half was going to come from the school, half was going to come from the town, and that got not put into the budget. So I would like to have $50,000 added to the Public Works municipal capital items, which would bring their total to $450,000.
Okay, your $50,000 is, yes, we can do that. We're within the 20%, correct? Right, everybody? Yep. My math skills get weak as the evening gets later. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion on this motion? Yes, the motion is to add the sum of $50,000 in the municipal capital items budget for the line items related to public works, increasing the total from $400,000 to $450,000. Yes, what you mean in terms of what it's under, equipment replacement or payment management? Would that be a new line, Kathy, or could it just exist in the?
You could do it under equipment.
Okay, under equipment replacement. So the first line within that would be increased by $50,000 from $370,000 to $420,000. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a second. I see no discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? My ears say the ayes have it. Okay, so we have approved some amendments to the capital funds budget. Anyone else have anything else on the capital funds budget? If not, turn to the next page, which is sewer. We're on page 23. This is an enterprise fund, so the sewer budget is fully funded by all those sewer fees that we pay, and it's shown at the top of the page. And revenues on page 24, the next page, are outside the scope and authority of the town meeting, but we do give those of you who are kind enough to come tonight the opportunity to ask any questions you might have about those line items. I hear none. So based on that, we have reached the end of the budgets, and we have you have approved a school municipal operating municipal capital, school capital, and debt lines as amended, and Kathy's been keeping careful notes of what all that adds up to. And we get to now move on to the most exciting part of the evening, which is to find out what numbers to put in the blanks on page 25. So Kathy's working her magic down there with her calculator. Somebody want to give her a little drum roll? Okay. So, are you ready? You ready to get your little pens out? All right, at the top of page 25, the sum in the first paragraph should be $83,738,521. And the sum in the second paragraph should be $4,140,948. Okay, so this is what we've come up with as a result of the report on the Committee on Appropriations. So this is the moment that we adopt the resolution. We're adopting the report of the Committee on Appropriations as amended with these numbers. So I need a motion. Okay, we have a motion to adopt the Committee on Appropriations report with amendments using those numbers. Do we have a second? Okay, second. Any discussion on this motion? All right, hearing none, I move the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so that's the first piece. Also on page 25, we have a resolution ordering the levy and collection of a tax. The numbers to be inserted in that first paragraph are $67,592,982, and the second number is $69,149,372. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution ordering the levy and collection of a tax and kindred matters? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Wait a minute, Kathy's running up here. Okay. I thought we'd done something wrong here. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I did, that's all one page. I think. Yes? Okay. All right. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that takes care of the levy and collection of a tax and kindred matters. And finally, on page 26, a resolution to establish the tax rate should read not greater than $19.13 per 100,000 valuation. Per thousand. Per 1,000 valuation, correct. $19.13 per thousand. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution to establish the tax rate? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and the final thing, and I'm glad more than 100 of you are here so we can let the Committee on Appropriations have their moment in the spotlight. By the Barrington Town Charter, we elect members to the Committee on Appropriations for 2-year staggered terms. Last year, we re-elected the absent Steve Permiano, hopefully flying home, and elected William DeWitt for terms expiring in 2022. This year, we will elect or re-elect 3 members of the committee for terms ending in 2023. We have received applications from 5 candidates: incumbents John Alessandro, Lisa Daft, and Cynthia Rosengard, and 2 first-time applicants, Savannah Holloway and Stephen DeLuca. So in alphabetical order, each candidate or someone designated by them will place that name in nomination and may give a 3-minute statement. Nominations for these positions do not require a second. We will start with John Alessandro. You can use that in the interest of time.
Hi, my name is John Alessandro. Most of you know me. I've served on various boards and commissions. I know it's late. I would appreciate your vote. I enjoy crunching the numbers and being up here and working for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Dr. Lisa Daft.
My name is Lisa Daft, and I also agree it's very late. I have thoroughly enjoyed, and it's been a great privilege to serve as the vice chairperson of this committee for the last 2 years, and I hope that you would support me in another 2-year position on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen DeLuca. Greetings.
Hello, everybody. My name is Steve DeLuca. I live in Roberta Platte for 26 years with my wife and 2 kids who moved on to college. They went through the school system here. They've gone on to college. They are now independent grown women. I've been very blessed to live in this town. I believe it's very important for for us to commit to civil commitment, to commit to the town and to contribute to the town. By way of background, I served as on the town's Park and Recreation Committee from 2012 to 2017, and I served as a vice chair for a period of time. I'm currently on the Barrington Resilience and Energy Committee. It would be my privilege to serve with you on the Appropriations Committee. Just so you know a little bit about me, I have an academic background in economics and political science and a Juris Doctorate degree. I have my own business practice, which I have to analyze my budget. I have to keep my income flow and pay my payroll and all things like that. So I'm very experienced in formulating a budget on a day-to-day basis. So I think that given my academic background, my commitment to the town, which I've shown through prior commitments with other committees, that I would love to serve on the Appropriations Committee, and I promise you that I'll do as good as a job as I possibly can, and will serve you well. Thank you.
Thank you. Savannah Holloway.
Hi, I'm Susie Holloway. I live on Fales Avenue. I've lived in Barrington now for almost 4 years, and I love it, and I would love to have a chance to be on the Committee on Appropriations. I was very involved in my local government and state government when I lived in North Carolina for 26 years. For 6 years, I was on our Water and Sewer Authority Board, and every year we had to approve our annual budget, and we had to balance and weigh the needs of improving and enhancing an infrastructure, running a pretty large water and sewer authority for approximately 80,000 people in the Chapel Hill area. And we also had to always be cognizant of keeping the rates as low as we possibly could. So I think I would be familiar with that process. I also have a law degree. I moved to North Carolina for law school. I met and married my husband. We raised our 2 daughters. I worked in state government for many years. I was an assistant attorney general at the North Carolina Attorney General's office, representing state boards, agencies, and commissions. So I have a lot of background in local and state government, and I would very much appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Rosengard?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Cynthia Rosengard.
5 minutes. 5 minutes to go.
And for the past 4 years, it's been my honor to serve the taxpayers of Barrington on the Committee on Appropriations. The work of the COA is to review the budgets presented by municipal and school administrators and to ask questions about strategic planning and to consider the big picture of what residents of Barrington expect in terms of services and what we can all afford. As I see it, our job is to take the policy decisions made by our administrators and elected bodies and determine if the costs are reflective of our values as a community and will provide value to the community. In the past 2 years, it's actually been great to have so much more taxpayer engagement in our Zoom meetings than we've ever had in our in-person meetings. And I've always felt that the more visible and transparent the COA's deliberations are, the better we prepare voters for the financial town meeting and the clearer the narrative of our decisions are. which is why I have volunteered in the last 2 years to take minutes for our meetings to capture the questions, answers, and discussions between the COA leadership and members and our administrators and town leaders. I have served the longest on the COA of any current member, which allows me to bring some institutional memory and a broader context to our review, discussions, and decisions. I believe that there continue to be innovations that can further enhance our process and recommendations, and I would very much appreciate it if you all would cast one of your 3 ballots to enable me to continue to serve on your behalf. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We are able to entertain nominations from the floor. Is anyone interested in placing a name in nomination? Hearing none. Nominations are now closed. We'll be using paper ballots for this, but they're a little bit different. On the paper ballot are the names of the 5 candidates from whom you just heard, and you can vote for any 3. So we're going to go through a similar process. Take out your number 2 and be thankful that we're not up to number 12. Tear off your number 2, bring it down to the teller, exchange it for a paper ballot. You go to the privacy booth, vote for 3 out of 5, no more than 3, up to 3 out of 5. Fold the ballot in half and insert it in the ballot box and return to your seat. We're going to try to get the folks on stage done quickly, and then the rest of you can come out and stand as we go up in line. The questions asked where the ballots are going after they fill them out. Right in there. Okay, they're going in the bottom of the voting machine. Once everyone has had a chance to vote, the ballots will be hand counted by the Board of Canvassers, which, needless to say, will take a little time. But we encourage you to stay and applaud the results. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we can now announce results of the Committee on Appropriations vote. They are, with 136 votes, Cynthia Rosengard. With 127 votes, Susanna Holloway. And with 107 votes, Stephen DeLuca. So with those votes, we come to the end of a very exciting night. Thank you very much for coming. You may have that for a minute. I need a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, leave. Thank you very much. The meeting is dissolved. May 25th, 2022. See you there.